Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Lander County Commissioner meeting. It's also via teleconference at the Austin Courthouse Commission office and also via audio conference by GoToMeeting. All times on this agenda are approximate. Considerations of items may require more or less time than is scheduled. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration. And the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Public comment is designated for discussion only. The public has the opportunity to address the commission on any matter not appearing on the agenda. However, no action may be taken on any matter raised until the matter itself has been specifically included on the agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Additionally, public comment may be heard on any item listed on the agenda. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and or attend and make comments on any agenda item at the Lander County Commissioners Board meeting. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the commission. Please note that the public body may interrupt the open meeting and exclude the public for the purpose of having an attorney-client discussion of potential and existing litigation pursuant to NRS 241.0153B2. I'll call this meeting to order. Patsy, would you lead us in the pledge?
Thank you. Please join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a moment of silence. All right, Lander County Commissioners may break for lunch from 12 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Commissioners' reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars. Patsy?
No report. Thank you.
Kathy? Okay. I have no report. JR?
Well, I've been to a couple meetings, but nothing's really changed all that much, but,
Commissioner?
they were talking about at the public lands meeting, about the new drug. They come up with a new drug that only takes one dose to sterilize the horses so they don't reproduce. And currently they're using a 2-dose thing, so you gotta catch them twice, the way it's set up right now, but they're working on a single dose. And also this Wayne will explain that with public comment, but the HR 6635, we need to look into that and maybe make a draft letter denying or opposing it, because it's not a good thing for us. And that's all I got.
Mike? Nothing to report. Okay. We'll move into staff reports on meetings, conferences, and seminars attended.
Good morning, Commission. Myself and Don Prince and Sean Baker, along with Aaron Martinez, met with Sheldon Mudd and the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And it was a pretty productive meeting. Hopefully with the new governor, there's going to be some more attention given to the rules. And they've since reached out through email and are looking forward to our next conversation. We're going to be looking at the rail and possibly the Amtrak to kind of spur everything along with what the Porter Group has going for us. I also have Pam Harrington on reviewing the Robertson Mine project. I signed a contract with her not to exceed $4,000 to do that review, which was a considerable difference from the one that we brought before you guys, which was a full review. And I can't remember the exact amount, but it was quite a bit. We signed that MOU with the BLM so she could be, we could be a cooperating agent and start getting some of our input on some of these things. Pam's done quite a bit of work and seems to be representing us well, so that'll be coming in an upcoming meeting. Pam will be bringing that report back to you guys. I'm looking forward to that. And then on March 6th, I will be attending a meeting with Nevada Tax Commission for the removal of the supplemental city/county tax guarantee status. And I'll be requesting once again that we remain on that unless this commission wishes to have it as a future agenda item and direct me to do otherwise. It's a benefit for the county and for the state as well. So once you're removed from that, you can't get back on it. So if we stay on it, it's probably a better thing. But if you guys would like that, maybe at the end of the meeting, you guys can direct me to put it back on the meeting if we want to discuss it further. Outside of that, everything else I have is on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Bert. We'll move into public comment for non-agenda items only. Is there any public comment?
You go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Hello, my name is Wayne Nebaker, and I'm here to comment on a bill that's currently in committee in the Congress. Good morning, Lander County Commissioners and constituents. Today I would like to discuss proposed bill H.R. 6635, introduced by Nevada Congressman Dina Titus, currently in committee. I have given you copies so you can read and digest her proposal. The scope of this bill is atrocious. In 1971, Congress approved the Wild Horse and Burro Act, and soon realized that they could never catch the number of horses they needed to without aerial support. And today, Ms. Titus would willingly eliminate the only tools the BLM and Forest Service have to enforce the laws set forth by Congress. I am here to urge each citizen of Lander County, Nevada, to write their state and federal legislatures and Governor Lombardo in protest of this bill. We are currently suffering an ecological catastrophe with the massive overpopulation of horses in Lander and bordering counties. As the catastrophe unfolds in the spring and summer of 2023, our forage is decimated. With birthing season upon us in a month or two, there is nothing left for the competing wildlife to consume. We have given the deer, antelope, rabbits, and all the native wildlife, large and small, the brutal reality of starvation for their future. I'm not here to blaspheme horses or defend ranchers, rather the humanity of being humane. We are the keepers of livestock and wildlife, and it is our duty to manage these resources ethically. Thank you very much.
Is there more public comment?
Yes. Oh, gosh, I can't go. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Denise Fortune for the Argenta Justice Court. I apologize, I've been on the agenda a few times and I've had to remove it for the last few months because of the court's calendar. What I'm here for today is basically, I wanted to bring to your attention and make it a public record, not just me saying congrats to the Argenta Justice Court employees. I wanted to make it public of how proud I am of the Argenta Justice Court employees and have been for a few months since our mass. I don't know if you guys, how many of you are familiar with the mass audit. It is the minimum accounting standard audit that every court has been ordered to do every 3 or 4 years since 2006. Patsy, I know you're well aware of the mass audit. The mass audit is a headache for the courts. It's something that the Supreme Court brought in years ago. I was on that committee. We've had 3 versions. We had the first one, then they updated it, and now we are on mass 3.1. As an employee of the Argenta Justice Court for the last 27 years, I've always had to do the mass audit. And there's not a judge or a court administrator or a deputy clerk that has not hated the mass audit. Everybody has audits. The county has audits. We all have audits. But the courts have a pretty high, in-depth audit called mass, and which the Supreme Court makes us all do. For the first time in all the years I've been with the court finished their mass audit last year, and we got no findings. And that is very unheard of in a mass audit, because all of us that deal with audits know they always try to find a finding. That's what auditors do. We have had 3 different audits.
or auditors, we started out back in the day with Kafori Armstrong, had them for a few mass audits. Then we went to Drake and Rose, had them for a few mass audits, and the last couple have been with Hinton Burdick. All these auditors that are able to do a mass audit for the Supreme Court, they have to take classes. They don't just pull some random. The county also uses Hinton Burdick, and but even with the county using Hinton Burdick, for them to do our court's mass audit, they have to take classes through the Supreme Court in order to do the mass audit. It is that intense. It is stressful. It is long. This thing lasts for weeks of the paperwork that our General Justice Court has to submit to them. And it's all random. And we have been dinged every year for something. I say ding, I know Bert says findings. I should say findings, but as a clerk, I always said dinging. We got dinged for what we would consider stupid little things, which nothing is ever stupid in an audit, but that was always my thought. A clerk forgot to write their initials on the bottom of a receipt. You get a finding. You don't put a date on a receipt, or the correct date, in January because the year changed. You've got a finding. Just stupid, sorry, I shouldn't say stupid. Things that seem kind of silly to us. Yes, the Supreme Court says, no. Courts have to be held to a higher standard, and we are, and it's pretty intense. Anyway, we had our last mass audit a few months ago. And for the first time, at least in all the years I've been with the court, we got a perfect mass audit. My last judicial council meeting, I brought this to the attention of the other judges and the Supreme Court, because I am very proud of these employees, Juanita Martin, Gabriela Cruz Diaz, for their hard work and their commitment to the Argenta Justice Court. And I just wanted to make the public also aware of how well these employees did for such a tough audit. So that's why I'm here. I gave them attaboys, and I've done all kinds of stuff, but I wanted to bring it to the commissioners and let them know how proud, and the public, of how proud I am of my employees.
Well done.
So,
You should
good
be.
job, Juanita and
Yeah.
Gabriela.
And
Okay,
our-
thank you.
Our kudos to you. We're proud.
Do we have any more public comment?
I would like to speak for public comment. I want to congratulate, thank Kathy for her effort, and how much it took. That crab feed was the first one I attended, and I've talked to a lot of people, and I've also myself felt it was probably one of the most well-organized events that I've participated in. I know how much time you put into it, and you could see it there, but you did a phenomenal job, so thank you.
Well, thank you, but I gave orders.
That's fine. Still takes that person to do. But thank you. It was very well represented.
Any more public comment? Okay, we'll move into our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action, without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. 1, approval of February 9th, 2023 agenda notice. 2, approval of January 3rd, 2023 special meeting minutes. 3, approval of January 12th, 2023 meeting minutes. 4, approval of January 26th, 2023 meeting minutes. And 5, approval of payroll change requests.
Liz, do we have any changes on the agenda? Nothing? Okay, well, with that, I will make a motion. We approve number 1, agenda notice, number 2, special meeting minutes for January 3rd, and number 5, approval of payroll change request. I did not receive the minutes for January 12th or January 26th.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Patsy, seconded by Kathy. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. We'll move into item 1, Commissioners, for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove payment of bills. So we'll need to take out, check 218537 and 218619, which were checks that are made to my employer. And then we'll have a motion to accept the remainder of bills.
I'll make a motion to accept the remainder of the bills.
Okay, Jared made the motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
And Mike seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carries. And then we have the two checks.
I'll make a motion, we approve checks number 218619 and 537.
I'll second.
Okay, so, Patsy made the motion, Mike seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, are made to my employer. We'll move into item 2. For discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the renewal of the contract between Lander County and AirMed Care, and to discuss any modifications needed, including any direction to legal staff as to what actions to take, if any. Gentlemen?
Will you ask if, are you here for AirMed?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Morning, how are y'all?
Muted. Unmuted.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and administration leadership, my name is Wes McCadden. I represent Global Medical Response Membership Division, and I'm here today to address any questions that you all might have with regard to the renewal of the municipal site plan for Lander County. I think you all had the pleasure of meeting Jason Monday, our National Sales Director, last summer when he was here. I was hired by Jason about 7 years ago and worked directly and indirectly with him for the past 7 years. And in my role as manager of strategic partnerships, I serve as a liaison to the different communities and counties that have these municipal site plans in place. So pending your continuation with the program, I will serve as a liaison for you with this program. Jason will still be intimately involved in the process, but I'll be your first point of contact going forward. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Where are you stationed?
Pardon me?
Where are you stationed, Wes?
My home is in Charleston, South Carolina,
Oh,
but I cover the United States, so I need a computer and a telephone and an airplane from time to time. So, but pleased to be here in the valley. It's a beautiful day. So thank you for having me.
I think the same question arises in the contract as far as litigation. If there was the litigation to go with this, that it was gonna be done in the state of Nevada, has that been updated on the contract?
No.
No?
No,
There's-
That is our main concern for this.
no, it has not.
Okay.
Okay. The, with Jason, there's been a dialogue going back and forth, email thread between Jason and Elizabeth McDonald, your HR director. So the only response we got back was no on, I guess that's 8 and 9 on the terms and conditions, which, you know, govern under the laws of state of Missouri, and arbitration to be conducted in St. Louis, Missouri. So if you have some proposed language, is it a simple matter of wanting to change it to the laws of the state of Nevada and arbitration in Nevada? I mean, that's something we can certainly work with, but
That is something that has been brought up from the beginning.
Commission, with all due respect, I think that we could even provide the email chains. There's been quite a bit more dialogue than just no. It was specific to what we were requesting the changes to be that was directed by this board, whether you're privy to that or not, but we do have that correspondence, and it hasn't been changed.
okay, I have not seen that. I got the email threads that Jason had forwarded over to me. But again, you know, if there's some proposed language that's in there that you all have, you know, we're happy to take a look at that and modify.
This contract, it expires February.
2/6, so we're now in grace period right now.
These are all the issues that everybody had a concern with, all the ones that are asterisks, and these are all new language that Jason said was not in the contract, so.
Okay.
there wasn't any change in the pricing though, right?
No, I
No,
think-
ma'am,
I
there's
think this
been
was-
no increase
That's the
over
same.
last year. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So there was no increase, Patsy, to bring you up to date, and we had a long meeting in Austin about this and great communication on it. The issues were, arbitration is in Missouri. The issues are, is there actually 2.5 pages of additional language that's in the agreement that you approved back in the Austin meeting that was never in our contract before. Jason's never explained to us what that additional language was for. So Ted actually outlined everything of it. I've given it to Bill. He has reviewed it all, so I'll go ahead and let him explain anything that he has an issue on it. But he has a copy of everything that we had concerns with, and there's literally 2 pages of it.
Counselor?
Well, it's, I believe, the same things that were brought up back in Austin.
What's the back end?
The, first off, I'm not, and from what I can tell, my predecessors are not fans of arbitration for any reason. The main reason that arbitration got so popular is urban areas, they can't get into court, so they can't get their matters heard, and it gets to be expensive to do court action. It's not anywhere near as expensive here because obviously our court system is not as jammed up as Las Vegas or Reno. So we can get into court quickly, so we're not fans of arbitration. We've had bad luck with it when we were doing it in Eureka. I can tell you, some of you know Pete Gokichias. Sometime you can talk to him about some of the problems they had with the Eureka Theater when they restored it. And we had some of that stuff end up in arbitration.
Carly, just for a minute, Carly's gonna go make copies of the documents I just gave him that Bill has reviewed, so it actually outlines everything that we talked about in Austin. So you guys will have copies so you can follow through with Bill.
So a suggestion, since he's just seen this for the first time, do you want to table this, let him have a chance to read that and then come back to it?
Okay.
I don't know that, I don't know how much, since we are in the grace period, time becomes a little bit.
Oh, I don't think table today. I think table, keep it today.
I follow.
Well,
I follow.
Well, so what we'll do is if there's anybody else that wants to speak on this issue, we'll let them speak. And if time runs out there and we don't have our materials, then we'll move on to the next item and come back to this one.
I can get this back to the decision makers at home office pretty quickly following the meeting today, so you don't spend more time in grace period.
So Jason Monday has those documents.
Okay, again, I have not seen these. The only thing I saw was his comments that there was basically no to the arbitration language that was in there, and generally the concern is the location of the arbitration and being subject to the laws of the state. These terms and conditions go out on every document that has an application tied to it. They're the basic terms and conditions of membership. They set the guidelines for it. The good news is we don't have any arbitration, at least to the best of my knowledge, because we have these terms and conditions set forth. The addition of the, location and the laws of Missouri, our division headquarters is in Missouri, so we just wanted to have a process in place, if there was a dispute over the membership. But again, we just don't.
So I don't
have
think the
arbitration.
concern is just about the arbitration. The concern is also about the Balance Bill Act, and I know we've talked about that before because it's been brought to the attention as to why we need to actually pay a contract with you with that act. And we do have MedX 1 here again that can help assist with that if you guys will allow him to speak.
Let me just say something for the record. I'm a little bit concerned that this has been dialogue that we've had, and we've had several meetings on it. It's very clear that this board has communicated the direction we wanted to go. Staff has, coordinated with Jason, and yet you sit here and not really prepared the way we expected the contract to be written. So I'm a little bit surprised by that, because it's like, if we're your client, we're doing business with you, it's just, matter of fact, is this how it's going to be? Is this how we're going to be taken care of? It's just, that's what I was saying, this has been going on for so long, I would have thought that all the I's dotted, T's were crossed when you came in front of us today.
Well, absolutely. Again, to my knowledge, the only items that we were going to be addressing as far as the terms and conditions were the laws of the state of Missouri and the location of arbitration. I did not see this other language. I can follow up with Jason to see if it was in the documents that he received, if there was some kind of a breakdown between point A to point B. Okay. That I don't know. As far as the No Surprises Act, I read the transcripts from your last meeting this summer. I also saw the video. It looked like Jason did a pretty good job of explaining how that process works, but, if we need further dialogue on that,
Okay.
understand that as well.
Is there anybody else here that'd like to speak on the issue? Please come to the front. Thanks, Wes.
My pleasure.
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jake Dahlstra. I'm representing Medics Air One. And I appreciate the time to allow me to address the Commission. So this is a complicated issue. Medical billing is a complicated thing, and I am not going to sit here and try to explain all of it, because to be honest with you, I don't have it's a complicated issue it's hard to grasp. What I will say, though, is with the No Surprise Billing Act, it has changed air medical billing. And so I just want to make sure that the Commission completely understands that there are laws that have changed how air ambulances conduct their billing practices. And specifically what I want to speak to is I can understand the Commission's desire to want to protect the citizens from high cost of air medical bills. But I think that you guys need to appreciate that if you were to sign this contract with Air Care Network, that the patients would only be covered with their aircraft. And there are several other carriers that are coming into this county, so Medics Air One being one of them, CareFlight out of Reno. There's other providers that are covering this county. And not only the air providers, but also the ground providers as well. And so if somebody gets transported by ground to Reno, into Elko or up to Boise, those patients are still going to be subject to the transport bill. Or if they get transported by another carrier, such as CareFlight or Medics Air One. And so I just want to make sure that the Commission appreciates and understands that if you sign this contract, your citizens will only be protected by Air Care Network if they get transported by them. And there's lots of other carriers that are doing transports out of this county on a weekly basis. The other thing that I would ask the Commission to consider is taking the money that you would spend towards this contract and putting it towards something else in the county, such as maybe a public health nurse or public education, and giving the people, having somebody work with the public to make sure that they understand the cost of air medical and cost of being transported. And so what I mean by that is, could you take those same dollars and have somebody educate the public about the importance of signing up for Medicare or signing up for health insurance? With the open exchange market with healthcare now, there's really, people should have healthcare, and they should sign up for that. And so could we take that money and educate the public on other issues so that they completely understand the nuances of not having insurance or not being signed up for insurance? And so I know we are trying to do a better job. Medics Air One, we want to do a better job of explaining our position. We're going to be working on setting up a town hall and some communication so that people completely understand the high cost of air medical and what they can do to protect themselves. So with that, I would just urge the Commission to consider not renewing this contract with Air Care Network and allowing people to, if they want to get a membership, let them do that on their own, or choose not to. And that's what I would urge the Commission to consider. So thanks for your time.
Gentlemen, before you leave, do either one of you have the numbers for us of what you transported last year?
Yes, ma'am. 22 closed cases, and we're still, some cases are still pending, but we were receiving transport requests almost weekly. On average, we transported a patient, a Lander County resident, about every week and a half. We had 6 aircraft within our fleet that were rendering service to the county over the course of 2022. Lion's share of those were fixed wing aircraft, which are historically a more expensive transport than a rotor wing or helicopter. We saw 10 different insurance carriers tied to those claims. Again, we're still processing claims, so I anticipate those numbers to probably increase a little bit. Multiple cases where uninsured residents were flown. We still continue to see adverse benefit determinations or declines. And in both of those cases, those situations, that would be where the patient would incur that entire flight bill, not just their cost-sharing amounts. And, you know, we continue to see this across the board from our competitors that don't offer a solution, and they take a very dismissive approach to the financial obligations of the patient, and moreover, what could potentially be financially impactful to that patient. Uninsured residents, the NSA does not, the No Surprises Act eliminates balance billing and surprise costs associated with the transport. The patient is still financially obligated to their cost-sharing amounts, deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance. If it was an adverse benefit determination where the claim is declined, it does nothing for that. If the patient is uninsured, it does nothing for that. If they are government insured, it does nothing for that. So from a cost standpoint, the savings that we're providing to your residents is far exceeding what you're paying as far as this contract is concerned. So we're not an insurance company, we're an air ambulance company, so this is a member-based solution versus an insurance product. And really the only drawback to it is it doesn't reciprocate with service providers outside of our network. We just have the good fortune to be the biggest air ambulance membership network provider in the country.
Thank you. I have something to say.
No, he was gonna give the numbers.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Commissioner, to answer your question directly, so 61 patients we transported out of the hospital here over this last year. So, and again, the 61 that we did, and that doesn't count Care Flight out of Reno, and I know that they're the closest helicopter on the west end of the county. And so they would be your first call.
You're saying out of Battle Mountain.
We did six.
How about the south?
The south, what do you mean? Oh, Austin.
Austin,
Oh, I'm
Kingston.
sorry, I see, yeah, so, I don't have those now, I mean, I'd have to go back and do some more digging, but we
That's
did
okay, but it was 61 and that was specifically out of Battle Mountain.
Yes, ma'am, yep.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Out of those 61, can you tell me how many of them actually received a bill from you?
I would say, I can tell you that zero of them probably got a bill, some kind of balance bill. And so what we do is we're gonna bill insurance, we're gonna bill the patients, and we have a very fair and just billing practice where we're not gonna send somebody to collections, and we have a very quick to write off the remaining bill, so.
That's, standard operating procedure though for folks in our industry. When somebody gets flown, like any healthcare provider, we're gonna file through your health insurance for payment for the flight if you have it. Regardless of your decision to participate in this program, we do advocate on your behalf to try to capture as much as we can from the insurance company or companies. We file through the appropriate carriers in the appropriate order. And then after those efforts are exhausted, any remaining balance would be the patient's responsibility. So naturally, that's your deductibles, your co-pays, your co-insurance, your cost-sharing amounts. It could be the entire flight bill if it were declined based on medical necessity, and unfortunately, that happens a bit more frequently than I think people realize. As an Air Medcare Network member, that same process happens. The only difference is that balance is considered prepaid in full. You have no out-of-pocket expense.
One of our real concerns last year was the fact we could not get personal with anyone, and we kept getting the runaround, and we couldn't get our bills paid, and we couldn't talk to anybody. So since then, have you been?
Yes, Jason Monday, when I do contact him, he does, but they are still sending bills to people, but as they bring them to me, I send them immediately to Jason, and he is clearing them, but the bills are still
So at
going
least we
to
have
them.
our contact, because
Yes.
that was a real problem last year for
And
us.
it's a common occurrence across a lot of markets. It's usually an address verification just to make sure that
No,
we are.
we understand all
Yeah, yeah.
that, but we couldn't get any response from your company.
Got
So
it.
I mean, our communication was dead. So, I memean, that's what we had to have, and that's okay, because that was one of my real problems last year with the company. And so Jason handled it, thank you.
And in all honesty, I think that's kind of part of why my position was created, again, is to kind of serve as a liaison for you all, so you do have a permanent point of contact going forward. Jason, again, will still be intimately involved in the process. I report directly to him. I'm just helping shoulder some of that weight.
So, excuse my speech here, this will be like the third or fourth time that this has been up for discussion. And Jason is well aware of the issue at hand, and it's, every time it comes, this has nothing to do with you, I'm saying, this is Jason well aware, especially from our Austin meeting, of the issues. And nothing frustrates me more than beating a dead horse. They are Jason is well aware of what, I am someone who's been flown out twice through CareFlight and has never received a bill, never. So it has, thank God, but I have had people call me who are uninsured, who have been flown out from your company and have given nothing, that they don't know that by their letters that they're going to be taken. You can't get blood out of a turnip, but they don't know that, and that's very stressful for people when they're already poor and they're getting these bills and they don't know who to turn to, and they can't contact anybody in your company because nobody will respond. And so this, I'm not directing this at you, I am directing it however to Jason, because this is more of coming back telling us what you're doing for us, but not what you're doing for the people of Lander County. And I have a huge issue of beating a dead horse. The company either wants to come and do for the people and work with us, especially with the litigation part of it, arbitration, whatever you call it, I don't care. They are well aware of it, or they don't. 61, they've never, like I said twice, I've been flown to Reno and never, but I've had people call me crying because they don't know what to do with their flight, just these, and I'm sorry, ridiculous amount of money in these bills. So, from someone who has had that happen, take that from someone that's happened, listen to that and to the patients, because it's horrifying to get that type of bill when you have nothing already.
Understood.
I just want to go back to when I asked you how many bills that MedX One had sent out. I want to remind everybody, we do not have an agreement with MedX One. We do not pay them $70,000 a year.
And I do have two questions. So when you say no out of pocket, that includes the deductibles for the individual?
Correct.
Is that
All the way up
correct?
to the entire flight bill if it was declined based on medical necessity, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm just make sure I'm understanding, so we have two services, one wants to charge us 70,000, one provides the same service and doesn't charge us the contract.
Correct.
They just get what they get when they bill insurances, and that's what they receive.
That's correct.
One comment to that. We will fly you whether you're part of this program or not. Being flown by us is not conducive upon registration in the Air Medcare Network program. The Air Medcare Network program is just a simple member-based solution that we offer, whereby if you do get flown and you don't have insurance, or you're underinsured, or the insurance company denies the claim for whatever reason, you're gonna have cost-sharing amounts. You will not have those out-of-pocket expenses if flown by us.
And
You can see the volume of flights where it's easily paid for itself, especially when you take into consideration somebody that doesn't have any insurance at all, and they're saddled with their entire flight bill, which is tens of thousands of dollars. And the same thing with, adverse benefit determinations or declines. So it covers those as well. So the 70,000 is not paying for us to service you as a air ambulance provider. It's to protect your residents on the back end financially if they have the misfortune to go for that ride.
So correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody is care flown out and they don't have insurance, is there not a process of documents that they can fill out to actually get those fees waived?
We can work, if somebody is, if they're not a member and they don't have any insurance at all and they're not on Medicaid, we can actually work with them. They have to be able to provide us with the documentation or the information to let us know that they're in a financial hardship situation. But we have payment plans and we would work with them absolutely to help those people. But with this, I mean, we factor out the Medicaid population because we accept Medicaid by law, we have to. But there's a segment of your population that's uninsured that doesn't have Medicaid. You might have somebody that is between jobs that's uninsured and they get flown. So it covers the uninsured population as well. The Medicaid, that's a fluid thing because somebody could be under Medicaid today and have health insurance tomorrow. So in that case, it would be a covered transport if that situation were to occur.
The other was, we actually upgraded the program, so if we happen to be in another county or even another state, and we're in an accident or have a medical problem, and your particular company picks us up,
Yes, ma'am.
Lander County resident, it all still applies, so.
You have a full membership, you have a full municipal site plan, so that covers you
Yes.
not only here, your residents here in Lander County, but everywhere we have a base across the United States. So to date, that's north of 320 rotor and fixed wings across 38 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. So if you're traveling, it could support you in that capacity as well.
May I just add one thing? I think it's important for the commissioners to consider that this is just one part of healthcare. So if somebody sustains, gets in an accident, has some kind of a medical condition, a heart attack or a stroke that needs to be transported, please understand that this is just one small piece of the medical expense. And so, like I said, if you could take that $70,000 and help educate your citizens in your county and say, hey, you should sign up for Medicaid, or you should consider getting health insurance. I mean, I think those dollars would go a lot further for your citizens that you inside Lander County.
You know, I can appreciate what you're telling us, but there are different places that you can have counseling, especially the Medicare, but those are without it too. There's still quite a few state agencies that can, but even if we spent the $70,000, let me assure you, if it's something we wanted to do, that wouldn't stop us from doing what you are encouraging us to do. So it isn't a matter of, we only have $70,000 and it's
Sure,
gonna go
sure, I
here.
appreciate
So I appreciate what you're saying. The frustrating part for all of us is that we thought this was gonna be taken care of and it wasn't with the things we asked about.
Can I ask one quick question?
So
I'm
with
sorry.
that, because we can't do anything today with your information, because you haven't gotten back to us telling us what you can or cannot do. I'm not even sure the company can. Their legal advice may not be, we're not gonna change it. This is a national contract and this is how it's gonna be.
That's my
So
concern.
with that, we have to decide what we'd like to do. I'm frustrated.
I just want to ask one question. I see these outlined in here. I haven't seen it. Did y'all provide?
I understand,
Any
and we're not
comments?
blaming you.
No, I know. I just,
But
were
what
there
I'm saying
comments
is,
provided?
you can't get us an answer today because your legal department has to look at that type of stuff.
I can certainly have it I can certainly have it expedited. Again,
So
I don't know if there was any comments
answer to
added to
your
this.
question, we had a meeting in Austin, and yes, comments were provided on every one of those paragraphs with Jason Monday there.
Okay.
I provided Jason Monday with those documents, the last 3 contracts we did with you, as well as the minutes with Austin, and outlined everything that was in that document you have right now.
Well, I will have to take it up with Jason because I don't.
No.
And
we
I have the
understand
email
that.
chain, and my county manager is
Okay.
actually on that email chain as well.
If you would forward that to me, I will give you my card before we leave,
Perfect.
just so we have it, and I will, expedite that process.
I would like to remind everybody that when the public thought they had lost this service, there was a big uproar about it, right?
Okay,
People
so
really
I-
liked this service.
I would like to go forward with, I think you know how important this has been to this commission.
Absolutely.
And we feel we really got backdoored here because of it. However, whether you can or cannot, I think I'd still like to make a decision today whether we'd like to go with them. We have a lot of contracts out there that are arbitration nationally on contracts. Health insurance companies especially are very, very common to do that, personally, that we do. So with that, I'm gonna make a motion that we do renew with AirMed. I still want them to continue. Like I said, you've really upset this commission because you didn't pay any attention to our county. And, not you personally, but we've expressed that in 10 different ways here this morning. But I'd like to still go ahead, if you can get that back to us, we need an answer. And
You'll
we
have it.
expect an
It'll be-
answer.
as soon as
But
we're
either
done here,
way,
you'll have it.
I will make the motion that we rejoin with AirMed.
So is it gonna be contingent upon the changes that we're requesting?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, or a motion on the floor, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, so, and I'd like to point out, if this commission does approve it, we're really gonna be watching the service aspect of it. That's been my whole concern, is the service aspect. Is Lander County and Lander County residents important to your company?
100%.
Yeah, so
And you have my commitment to that as well as Jason's, so I'll give you all my cards, you'll have my cell phone, I answer my own phone, so every one of you will have it. Y'all will have it. Forward those emails to me and I'll get that over so we get this remedied as soon as possible.
And I respect that, and I have this to say, I ask that you not say that, Jason, because we have not got anywhere with him. Now, we don't know you, this dialogue is new.
Sure.
So I ask that you're starting on new ground, so we will go from there, but please do not say that he will do everything, because that has not been the case. For as far as the way that I want to vote for, go forward, we have a first and a second.
Yeah, first and a second, and is there any discussion on it, any comment from the audience on it?
I have one more question. Is there any advantage to you and your company if they get the contract or if they don't? If they don't get the contract, is it advantageous to you guys?
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's intent with the
No.
dialogue today, and just purely out of curiosity, because you know, I know at the last meeting in Austin, our insurance, Tim Holland was there and spoke on it, and was speaking of a you know, homegrown type of program compared to you know, a national program, and so I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly.
So your question directly is, does it benefit if our company, if they don't get it? Or?
Correct.
Yeah, no, I would say that I just want to make sure that the commission understands that there's been a lot that has changed in air medical billing, and that like Elizabeth pointed out, we provide this service at no cost to the county. And we just want to make sure that the commission understands that you will still get this service for no cost to the taxpayers. And Air Care Network and their providers will continue to service this county. I just want to make sure that the taxpayers in this county understand that this service can happen at no cost.
But if they're the ones who fly them out, there's going to be a cost. And that's, if they are not insured, if we don't have anything put in place and their company flies, their aircraft fly out, there is a disservice to the community as well, because they are going to get billed. So there is, it's not, I don't want you to make it sound like if they get flown out by them, that and we're not insured, they're not insured through us, that there's not gonna be a fee. There's going to be a fee.
Sure.
So I wanna make sure that when you make that statement, if they are the aircraft flying out, then, and we're paying that contract, they are not getting billed. So I wanna make sure that that is differentiated, which is a big word for me to say today, so please appreciate that.
Thank you.
There is, so make sure that in the sand line in the sand is made, please, okay?
And Brian, I want to go back to your comment about the community and the uproar that they were
Yes.
when they did to it. So we have, and I do have communication with both these companies at all times, and we did have a meeting with Paul, with MedX One, with Bert and Bill and myself, and I did ask if at any time if we could have a town hall meeting, if them and even Reach or anybody could come in and actually explain to the people in the community how the Balance Bill Act works, how it all works, and give them areas to where they could, maybe they need to step up their game and where we assist or whatever, and they have been very appreciative and said that they would absolutely do it.
Because I do think from our standpoint here, we still don't understand the billing side of this, and if we do what the Balance Billing Act did do or didn't do, whether they can charge or can't charge, whether we have a contract or not, and I think that is the question.
Yeah.
I know we're limited on time, and if you would like me to stick around after your meeting to kind of give you a little bit more insight on how that billing process works through No Surprises Act. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I have a pretty good understanding of how it works, so happy to share. And then we have a local membership manager as well, who I think you may have met in the past. Her name is Gina Fascinetti. So our membership managers work more, direct to consumer, if you will, in the community, but they can absolutely be involved in the
I will just
messaging.
put on the record, Gina Fascinetti is the one that did not contact us back and reach out to us.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, all right, well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on it? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Brian, Bill wanted to speak.
Oh, yes, sorry.
it's just, I just wanted to make clear that the way it's written, we cannot, legally, I cannot recommend that you do it. I would have to recommend against doing
No,
it
yeah,
the way
motion
it's
was
written.
With the noted changes, so if it comes back, they
The other
can't.
part is policy, but on the policy, understand that there is a chance that consumers will not get any bill that can stand up after it's been, after they dispute it, from any of these carriers. Because of the No Surprises Act, everything that you're paying for, in other words, may be unnecessary. That is, that there is no benefit to the membership.
So am I not understanding this correctly?
So he's saying that if we pay the money for the membership part of it, or if we don't renew this contract and we don't pay the money, and then somebody gets a bill from AirMed, it can be disputed, and he's saying per this act, there's a chance that that bill actually will not be valid,
A chance.
correct?
Or chance.
Correct.
Only a
It has
chance, though,
been
not a
explained to
It has to
me,
be
it
disputed.
has been explained to me that, in fact, that is the case, that they would not be able to legitimately claim it. But I'm not 100% sure. The problem is
Okay, but
that.
we still have a lot of, like the co-insurance and deductibles and all the rest that an
Correct.
average person with insurance would still have.
And it can be
Correct.
Like,
substantial.
even like Kathy, and therefore, so to say that our membership is mute is really, is not correct. I understand what we're saying legally, but, there's still a benefit.
Okay, so I did call for the vote, and it was unanimous, did everybody vote aye? Okay, so that,
So it
motion
moves forward,
passes.
but it only moves
And
forward
that's
if
with
they
the
give
changes
us
recommended?
one that
With
takes
the
all this
recommended
out.
changes, so if it comes back that
So if they
their
don't
legal
give
says
us
they
one
can't,
with
then
all
we're
this,
gonna have
then
to,
we don't have
we're gonna have to look at it again.
That's what they voted.
And just
gentlemen.
one added clarification on the, as far as the location of laws of Nevada, location of arbitration in Nevada, is that something that the commission is comfortable with if we're able to modify that? Okay, I just wanted to be sure when I take this back, so, and I'll have an answer for you post haste.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, we'll move to item 3. For discussion of possible action to approve, disapprove the appointment of one individual to serve on the Lander County Planning Commission, which currently has 3 openings. New terms are from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024, and we have one letter from Matt Baker. Any discussion on this item? Any motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Matt Baker for the appointment on the planning commission
From, what's the
from July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2024.
Okay, JR made the motion, do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Patsy second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And I do have a comment, because
Okay.
we're back to when we receive information like this, we should have a receive stamp. We have no date on this whatsoever, and we've asked, when we receive correspondence, we want a receive stamp. Okay?
On
Or
the letter
his
that was
letter.
received.
I mean, this could have been sitting here for 6 months, you know.
That letter, I didn't, Elizabeth, I didn't hear you, the letter.
Thank you, Wes.
Okay, so when that, receive that, we can get that date stamped, please.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
the motion carries. We'll move into item 4. For discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the appointment of one individual to serve on the Lander County Conservation District as county representative, which currently has one opening. New terms are from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, and we have one letter from Wayne Nebaker.
I'll make a motion that we approve Wayne Travis Nebaker to the Lander County Conservation District as our county representative, serving January 22 through December 31st, 24.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
You wanna take a break?
Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Good morning.
Are we good? Okay, so item 5 for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove the bylaws for the Lander County Economic Development Authority Board. Morning.
Good morning. Paula Tamara, the chairman for the Lander County Economic Development Authority. So we've taken the better half of 6 months trying to get this, the bylaws developed and sent over to you. The only thing that I have to say about it, I think it kind of outlines everything that we do in a great way. The only problem that I have with it is we were assigned a secretary to do the minutes for it, and we've always had a liaison. If you look back through all the other county codes and everything, the original person that I started working with when I got on the LEDA board was Gina. And throughout the history of our board, we've always had a liaison that worked, that fielded the calls for economic development, that would report back to us if there were any calls coming into the county, and do some of the paperwork, file things, and do our budget and things like that. And then recently, we've been informed at our last meeting that she no longer does any of that. She just does minutes, and so we just wanted to get some clarification on that, because this is a lot of work that we do for the county. We put a lot of hours into, like, the industrial center with the train port and everything, and it took a lot of hours and by our part and our secretary, our liaison, to get those things ready. We're working on a business improvement program that we will bring to you at a later date, but some of those things, all of us are, of course, busy. We make time for this board and the other committees that are formed out of LEDA to work on. So not having a liaison is that can help us do the budget, just getting this contract changed and proofed and sent down to get on the agenda. I had to do that myself, which is no big
Okay,
deal.
so Paula, what do you want to change that says the secretary shall, and there's something in there that you want added to that? Is that what you're asking?
So I'm just wondering if her job description got changed and we no longer have that person as a liaison. I'm surprised because no one contacted our board to ask us when this change was done.
Oh, okay, stop. No, I'm still confused over what you're saying, because you put the bylaws together for us to look at, right? So, under the secretary shall, you want something in there that's stronger, like is a liaison with the
Well,
county?
With the county code that you created for LEDA, we have a liaison. When I looked up the code yesterday, it says that we have a liaison that helps us with the different projects that we need, that we can't do ourselves, making phone calls, fielding. We have our website on the county site, but there's no action going on. So there's just a few things here.
Let me interject. So basically, there's a Lander County code.
Yes.
And we were doing it one way, and then all of a sudden it changed?
Correct.
So
Yes.
Anybody have background on that? Why would it have changed, or if we
I don't-
actually
I
had
was
the
Kyla
code?
the last one, because I sat on this board too,
so
and
does
we've always had a
Caitlin.
liaison. They've been very strong
Well,
in.
if it's code, then that's what I'm
Yeah,
confused
let me
about.
see if I brought that.
Okay, so my question is, do we want to change where it says the secretary shall? Is that what they're asking for? Or do we need to change it if the code says?
This would be this is the bylaws of their board.
Okay, so we don't have to do
I think
anything.
the concern is the liaison that they had that, I'm assuming.
Okay, so it has
was a
nothing to do with the
county-
bylaws, it's just the
was a
liaison.
county employee, is that correct?
It's
Okay.
just a
Yes.
concern.
And we were not aware, when we did these bylaws, we were not aware that that relationship had changed. It's at the last meeting that we were aware, she informed us that all she does is
And
minutes.
who's she?
Lindsay?
Lindsay West,
Lindsay. Oh, okay, so,
and it's nothing against her, we weren't aware of that
but
change.
it's up until that point, it's been how,
Yes.
it has been. but it's
Always
changed.
has.
So that's my question, is
Yeah.
why the change, and if anybody can speak to that, or give me any background of that.
So I was not at the last meeting, but, I'm a little bit confused by it. Maybe Colt can speak more to this, cause that is in his department. and, get some clarification for us.
Morning, Cole.
Before, I was at that meeting, and the young lady said that her job description had been redone, and anything other than just that had been taken out of her job description, so I wanted to make sure that that was stated as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Colt Nelson. Yes, and I'll follow my sword for not communicating better with Paula, for sure. Been a lot going on with the new position, but what we asked Lindsay was to stick with the bylaws that are written as what the secretary does. There's like 4 items in there. Minutes is the majority of that, but only to stick to that because we didn't want her to be overwhelmed with her new role. She was brand new. That is something that I still want to stick with because that's what her role is. Unless there's something in addition to that that we need to add to help, that's open for discussion
That goes with
with me and the
county
manager.
Okay, I'm
but-
confused. You want to take away the liaison? Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what he's saying.
We're okay. It was just a miscommunication.
Yeah, there's specific bylaws of the secretary's duties that are listed right in there. This is what the secretary shall do. I asked Lindsay to just stick to that. If something scope creeps out of that, I need to know about it. Stick with that because I don't want her overwhelmed. In the past, this is all hearsay, I wasn't involved with it, is that we went way far out from what we should be doing in this position.
Well, I guess there's a discrepancy here because when you see what we should be doing, this is Lander County Economic Development and it's important. And that's always fallen under your area. And they have been the leader in it, not just a liaison, but the leader. And so LIDA itself has to, oh yes, it'll go
Then I'm
back
confused.
years and
Then I'm
years.
confused.
County code, that's the county
Yeah.
code when it was originated.
Paul,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. Sorry, Kathy, did I cut you off? The bylaws that we're looking at today?
Yes.
Are these the same, were these the same from the older bylaws, or did something change?
These were basically the bylaws that we've been working on for quite a while. The
So
only,
nothing's been added to them?
not really. The only thing is the secretary, and we've always had that liaison that was more than just doing minutes. We've always had that
So that's
per
my
the code.
question, is your previous bylaws, was this not written into it, the secretary shall? So this
Thi-
is a new addition?
This code you just gave us does not say that we supply a liaison, it says we supply secretarial
We
duties.
supply secretarial
Yes.
duties, does it
She
give?
But that got-
performs secretarial functions.
And she also is the grant administrator, correct?
Can I see the ordinance? Or the code, sorry.
Like I said, we just need some extra help. It's a lot to do, and, right now, we have NNRDA, but, we have no one fielding the phone calls for LIDA for any projects that could come into the
Well,
county.
LIDA is still a volunteer organization, and LIDA has been important with everything you do, but it's still the county that actually was doing. I mean, we're glad you're there to help us, not us to help you. And I think that's the way we have to look at it. So you said your new employee is overwhelmed? She has so much to do?
I said, Patsy, it could lead to that if we continued down the road that we had before. So I said, just stick with the bylaws, because I read both these forms, and it basically said the secretary shall do these things. I might not have read that one, Paula, because I didn't know it existed, but I said, let's stick with what we have. and
But
see
if you do that, we have really given them a real kick in the pants here, that and because they're volunteer and we're not, it's our county, and it's the.
I would like to
a
speak-
full-time job too with other roles with this person that's full-time, that she is busy. So we didn't want it to go so far out that she was not neglecting her other duties as a planning commissioner.
Well,
So-
I
or
don't
a
think
planning
we've
coordinator.
got so far out, I mean, I really don't,
Well,
but
let
to
me
say.
stop there. If we have something in writing, and that's what Colt is saying, is that he's taking his staff, this is his department, and saying, this is what is in writing, and this is what your duties are, then there's no foul for Colt. Then it just, if it becomes this board's decision to change those duties if we see fit, but I
Right.
just wanna say that he's trying to operate within the scope of what was written. I wanna read the code. Lander County, so this is appointment of advisor. Lander County Economic Development Specialist is designed as an advisory to the Lander County Economic Development Authority and shall serve the board of directors, work as a grant administrator, and perform secretarial functions for the Lander Economic Development Authority. So it's a pretty broad thing. That's why I was asking is if this secretary shall, was it in your previous bylaws, yes or no?
We have not had any bylaws before that we
Okay.
can find.
Okay, so what you're saying is with her new duties, is that you're trying, so when you said operate within the scope, were you referring to this to this code?
No.
What were you referring to?
The bylaws that was being presented, I didn't know they were
Oh,
granted.
presented today?
Yeah.
Got you, okay.
That's what I was handed to me, because I asked, what are your duties? I asked that to begin with.
But no one contacted our board to find out what it is that our secretary normally does for us. And so I didn't realize that was going, that had changed until she had said something at our last meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that before we agreed to the bylaws.
Okay, Bert, you had a,
Yes, no, you took a lot of what I had to say, because it is clear. There's something else that I would like the board to know, is in the past, when prior to Colt, our planning department fell way behind because they made this the priority and not the planning department. And if anybody walked into that office, you've seen stacks of paperwork, business licenses behind different things that are important to that office, which is what Colt is trying to clean up. And in the process of that, we have to keep everybody within the lanes of what they should be doing, and that's what Colt was doing, and I supported it. I still do support it, and I want to make sure that the board also knows that we have countless hours with Aaron Martinez putting in different plans and different opportunities for this board to move forward and do business improvement plans, and all of it is there. We're trying to work our best, but still keep everybody within their lanes and able to do the jobs that they have at hand. If not, then we need to add probably a position to directly relate to this board moving forward, because it can become a lot if the board just relies on one person to do that work.
let me ask this question. So Colt, with these duties that are lined out here, are you fine with those duties? Okay, so let me ask you this, Paula. Are you fine with these duties as long as your liaison or this county person that's assigned to you guys?
Well, as long as it includes preparing our budget and coming before the commissioners and.
Hold on one second here. Preparing the budget?
Lake and Sullivan, for the record, I did advise that they add, if it's something they still want the planning coordinator to do, because that's position's always done it, preparing Lita's budget
Okay.
and the grant request for Lita.
Okay.
That's not listed in there, so if that's something that she's gonna continue to do, we'd probably wanna put that in there. I was at the last Lita meeting as well, and the reason why we kinda got on this subject is because, the website, the Lita used to have their own website, correct, and you don't anymore, and so they're on our county website now, and they wanted Lindsay to kind of manage that and post things for them, and she was not aware that that was part of her duties. I did tell Paula that the board could probably get with Liz and get a login so that the board could post on there what they wanted, but that was kind of where we got off track, I think.
Well, I mean,
And see, we're your board, and we're trying to help you, and so, having, that person that can also help us, that's a county employee is important.
So that's what I'm asking, is just because bottom line is, unless we have it in writing and we can agree on it, then there becomes a lot of hearsay.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking. So basically, I just heard that there's other duties that are expected of this person that aren't necessarily written here, and that's why I'm asking. Colt, you said you were fine with it. Paula asked you if you were fine with it. If you're not, and there's other duties that need to be added to it, then we need to know about it as a board. Yes, ma'am.
Miranda Tremaine, for the record. I think the most important thing is right now is that the county communicates with these boards and asks what we need on a regular basis, If there is gonna be a big change like that it should be communicated between the board and the county. And that was not done.
So I have something to say. For this, the bad part about this is the breakdown of communication that the land, because I've done a little bit of research trying to figure this out, so I don't sound like a fool, so excuse me if I do. I went back to find out Lander County is the one that created this board, obviously, for economic development. Now, when they sat down to do these bylaws, and I didn't have any part of this, I just listened and asked questions. When that board did these bylaws, they were under the assumption of the same duties that Kyla was doing. So I don't think that they put all that stuff in there because at that time they were being done. And so it's an oversight that those things weren't put in. they're going off of this and not in their minds, and so they're assuming it's gonna be continued. So my suggestion is when these things take place, and the county's gonna change something that's been in place for a long time with these boards, that we do something in writing. Because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and then everyone gets offended and starts pointing fingers, and it's usually not that, it's trying to figure out time and employees and things like that. And so I think that the bylaws, her writing, or their board writing these bylaws in their mind were going off of the service they had received before. So I think there has to be, setting these bylaws and not approving these bylaws, that the group of people get together and figure out what's financially feasible for them to be able to help this board, because the fact of having to hire another person is ludicrous, but there has to be some kind of happy medium, and not pointing fingers or falling on swords. We just find out where the hole was and we fix it, my suggestion.
Well, I appreciate what everybody's saying about, Colt and Bert, about we don't want them spending all their time, we have to do this because you feel is more important. But I'm going, how much time are we talking? I didn't think we were talking that kind of time. I mean, they meet once a month, they take phone calls, do the agenda, things like that. She is the liaison. Kyla has been, before her, and then way back to Jan. I mean,
And Gina.
it goes back a long ways when we did Lita. And so I understand the cutoff, but we need to be important in there. But I mean, I don't expect it to take, an hour every single day. I don't. It isn't that time consuming. So we do need to work this out.
Well, and right now, there is no one fielding calls for the economic development under our board. Kyle and everyone else used to field those calls through that office.
No, I don't expect a volunteer board to do that. Surely we will do that. That's what it is. Lita is part of your office.
I'm unaware that we're not fielding calls for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe that the same phones are ringing that were before and getting answered just the same as before. The fielding of the calls, I believe, is similar. It's the concern that we have is just defining our roles and making sure that everybody knows what's expected. An hour a day is really easily spent when people are calling, wanting these kind of things that fall right into the building department. So it is easily taken up a lot of time. And when you get into grants and administering grants, that takes another level of expertise that we have to kind of funnel in other directions, coming from Colt's office. So it's a little bit more complex than what maybe it's coming off as just a secretary that answers phones and puts together some minutes. And a lot to what, Commissioner Andros said is that this is a communication breakdown more than anything. We have to do better on both ends, and make sure that we fill this, and maybe this is something that we bring back to this board for approval after we sit down and iron out exactly what roles are gonna be and define them clearly.
That certainly would be my recommendation. But when it comes to grants, we have a grant writer, and that grant writer is writing. Most certainly, Lita would bring the grant and say, we've identified this, and we would give it to our grant writer.
Now, grant writers are different than administrators. It's after we've received the grant, we administer that grant.
Yes.
Then it starts getting consuming and making sure that we're filing the proper forms at the proper times with how the money's being spent and the other avenues that we
That
gotta
has
go
always
down.
been a concern with every grant we've ever had.
For sure.
Where does
So
it go?
it does involve multiple departments,
Yeah.
Lakin, myself, Colts, Lita,
Okay, so you folks want to look at this and see how you want to change the bylaws and the
That would be
secretary
my
and bring it back.
Yeah, so basically, I think it's a little premature because I think there's some bylaws that need to be changed, so
Yep.
work together, bring it back to us. and-
Commissioner, I think, or-
Yes, Bill.
Well, I was just gonna point out, these are things that, the item says the secretary shall, and there's those items. There's nothing there that prohibits the secretary from doing more. And that's true of most of our stuff. You can always do more than what's written, and if tradition dictates that you've been doing it, well, then just keep doing it. But I think Bert is correct, there's just a problem with communication, that's all.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we'll move into item 6 for discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove resolution number 2023-01, a resolution of the Lander County Board of Commissioners to establish the fees for the locksmith and safe mechanic license and permit fees. So this is, basically we wanted to make it easy if we ever had to change fees in the future, and, our counselor had.
Yeah, this is the resolution that sets the fees for the ordinance that we did at the last meeting.
So who would like to read the resolution? Anybody wanna read the
They
resolution?
have to read the whole resolution.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
A resolution of Lander County Board of Commissioners to establish fees and locksmith and safe mechanic licenses and permit fees. Whereas Lander County has the authority to establish the fee for locksmith and safe mechanic licenses and permit fees as set forth in the Lander County Ordinance Title 15, Chapter 18, and now therefore be it resolved that the Lander County hereby adopts and establishes that the fees for initial application and renewal fees will be $50, and reissue and replacement fees will be $10.
I will second that motion and add the resolution number 2023-01.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mike, second from Patsy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Did you sign the original?
Okay, we'll move into item 7.
No, they'll have it.
For discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove rejoining NACO, National Association of Counties, and the Nevada Association of Counties. So like Patsy asked for this to be put on, so is there anybody that'd like to?
I did. I think it's a very appropriate time because the legislation is meeting for our state, and NACO has always been involved in all of that. Plus, nationally, our Nevada NACO, of course, has been so important on the other side too. In fact, I talked with Chris Porter, and he said, I do hope that you will rejoin. It's a very important part that they work with, that Porter does, who is our current lobbyist. So with this, we actually have our executive director.
Good morning,
from NACO.
Commissioners. Yep. I'm flexible today, so I don't know exactly how you want to do this, but I'll introduce myself to start with. My name is Vincent Guthrow. I serve as the executive director.
Vincent, can you speak up a little?
Oh yeah, sorry. Usually my voice is too loud, so I try and bring it down a notch. But anyways, so I've met a handful of you. To the two I haven't met, like I said, my name is Vincent Guthrow, and I now serve as the executive director of NACO. I previous to this served as the deputy director, and I've been with the association now a little over 5 years. Lifelong Nevadan, happy to support this organization, happy to come talk to you all about it. And I think I mentioned I've been in this role for about 1.5 years. I'm happy to run through sort of a refresher of NACO, or I'm happy to take questions on this. I do want to make sure that we're all on the same page to start with. I see how the agenda item's written. I'm here for the Nevada Association, so I'm here for your state association, hopefully. And I think the last time that we were out here, you were obviously still members of NACO. I think it was in either 2018 or 2019. My predecessor and I gave a presentation to this group. There was different commissioners up on that dais. So, I think at that time we were in a good spot. I don't know if you want to start with questions, or if you want me to. Or if Patsy has some, Commissioner Waits has any remarks other than that, since it was her agenda item.
Sure.
Other than that, I'm happy to launch into a refresher. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but happy to answer any pointed questions that you might have, and then we can move from there, or at your pleasure.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and just give us your spiel here.
Yeah, sure. I think so for me, I hate PowerPoints. So if you're okay with me just talking at you, we'll go from there. So. Appreciate the time on the agenda, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come talk a little bit about NACO. And by NACO, I mean Nevada Association of Counties. Right now, to talk a little bit about how our board is made up, and sort of talk about what NACO works on. So we work on collective county issues. We are ran by a board of directors, which our board president this year is Commissioner Varlin Higbee from Lincoln County. Each member county gets at least one seat on the board, and then we have an executive committee that also, they lead our organization. NACO is in statute. That is our role at the legislature. We get 5 bill draft requests that are approved by our board. We vet them when they're not in session, and we work through a litany of those. We are approaching our 100-year anniversary, so I think the consensus and the collective county issues that we work on at NACO are a testament to how long we've been around. So, and NACO primarily, our goal is to advocate for counties. It's also to serve as a forum for collaboration. It's also to provide resources to all of you. I know that you have day-to-day things that you all need to work on and focus on here in your communities. And we're proud to take that role to support those efforts for you. I think, in our mission and our motto at NACO, we believe that county governance is the most important form of governance because you're closest to the people here. And I think our goal is to give you resources and tools to do those things here locally. We advocate on national and state issues on behalf of Nevada's counties. We're a staff of 5 at the NACO office. I call us sort of nimble but flexible, but we work hard on behalf of our members. We have a full-time government affairs manager. I, of course, serve as the executive director. We have a person that serves full-time on public lands issues. I know that's important to, and natural resources, I know that's important to this county and all of our counties. Every county in Nevada has public lands, and the impacts are vast on our counties, which is why we have a full-time person in the office. We also, NACO does a few things, like I said, were mentioned in statute. So I'll sort of talk a little bit about our advocacy efforts, not just during session, but outside of session. It is a year-round job for us. One of the things that we do is that we provide the county voice on statewide boards throughout the state on critical county issues. We appoint 3 seats to the Committee on Local Government Finance, which is important to counties across Nevada. We appoint to the Nevada Commission on Regular Projects, the Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles, which also provides grants to counties. I know you guys have an event, I think in Austin, right? Is that a mountain bike event or something to that extent? Okay. So we also work on Open Meeting Law Task Force that impacts counties, and of course, like I mentioned, we do work extensively on public lands issues. That includes, we have a seat on the Cooperative Extension Advisory Council. We also work on some of the federal land, the committees that they have to advocate for that. So like I mentioned, I do want to talk a little bit about public lands just because of the impacts here in Lander County. We have done a lot this year, and as we do every year on public lands. As I mentioned, every county in Nevada has public lands. Even our urban counties have public lands. So I like to remind folks of that. We realize that it is a tough environment for local government input on public lands issues. And we seek to at least bring your voice to the table. We think that is an important thing to do. We have commented and provided input on behalf of Nevada's counties on a litany of public lands issues: Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, sage grouse, the recently passed NNDA, probably get that wrong, but that addressed the Fallon Naval expansion. We worked on that for years. I think it was the first issue I started working on when I started here at NACO. So, and there's a lot of good things in there for counties, a lot of mitigation for private landowners in there, and also a lot of things in there to keep counties whole as they lose federal dollars under the PILT calculation. Speaking of that, we've advocated consistently for the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program. That has been fully funded now for 3 years in a row. We understand that the PILT dollars are pennies on the dollar for what it would be if there were property taxes collected, but nonetheless, we advocate to at least get some revenue to local governments. And then we make sure that we're engaged on federal issues because, as I mentioned, they dramatically affect Nevada's counties. Want to talk about a couple of things that we did in the interim. One of the things we worked on at NACO was we brought together a working group on the China Spring Youth Camp that is used by 16 of our 17 Nevada counties. We worked extensively on that, and in response to some legislature budget cuts to that camp, at least on the state share, we are working to restore those cuts, but also change the governance so that counties have additional input on that camp. We worked extensively with judges, justice of the peace, and then also the juvenile probation officers, and then county fiscal folks on getting that to a good spot, I think. We are working this session. I'll talk a little bit about our bills. The NACO board did approve 5 bills. I think it's a balanced legislative agenda that reflects our statewide association, but also is very local government focused. One of the bills that we have out there addresses Board of County Commission vacancies. Right now, that is an appointment by the governor with no consultation to the local board. I know that some governors have approached it differently. They have reached out to boards and asked for suggestions or feedback, and there is no requirement in law to do that. We are allowing local governments to create their own process, or the bill would allow local governments to create their own process should there be a vacancy on your board. I think that's important. You all know your community, and I think it's important for you to have input on that process at a minimum. We are making some adjustments based on census numbers to make sure that our that our rural counties are not that the intent of legislation that applies to urban counties doesn't suddenly apply to our rural counties. It affects a handful of counties, and we want to make sure that the intent of those bills remain the same and that your communities serve your community needs, not just some arbitrary number, I think, in the legislature. We're working on a bill to address public and legal notices, huge costs for local government. And with the online delivery of the newspaper, as people move to that and papers of circulation becoming problematic, it is gumming up local government business. We've experienced that in several of our counties. So we're working on some reforms to that, working with multiple stakeholders on that, including the Press Association and others. But as you know, that's a huge impact to counties. We are also working on a bill to review unfunded mandates to the child welfare system. I realize that in our rural counties, that is not a service that you directly provide from the county. You are assessed that from the state. It is one of the largest assessments to local governments. We believe that we are, like I said, we believe that unfunded mandates have a huge impact on that assessment, and also service delivery for local governments. The urban counties stand up their own programs. They receive static grants from the state that cover some of the costs, but not all. So we are looking at that extensively. I think that is a great statewide bill also, because that is a huge service that huge impact to counties to provide that service. We also have one on, speaking of OHVs, we have one to allow local governments to construct, operate, and maintain off-highway vehicle trails adjacent to paved highways. The intent is not to put them on paved highways, for my law enforcement folks in the room, but it's to allow counties as they create OHV plans or maximize that infrastructure in their communities, that it mimics actually a Utah law that allows those trail networks to be located next to or adjacent to paved highways. I think you'll see a reduction of massive OHVs riding through your community if you don't want them. So anyways, and of course during session, we work on a ton of different things on behalf of counties. The state budget, state policies. I recognize that a majority of the legislature does not live in rural Nevada, but our goal is to educate them on local government issues, local government impacts, and the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And I think, so like I said, some of the other impacts that we watch outside of our bills, of course, are bills that have impacts to county fiscal affairs, county administration, and the way that you all operate here at the local level. We also watch the state budget. As you know, it has a huge impact to counties through assessments mostly, but also pushdowns of services. We look for those and we make sure that your voice is heard on those issues. And then our forum, as I mentioned, our forum for collaboration, we work extensively to do that. One of the ways that we do that is through our annual conference. I'll make a plug for it. It is in Elko this year, September 26th through the 28th. And you'll see commissioners from all over the state. Our conference last year was in Story County, hosted in Virginia City, and it was a great time, our most well-attended conference there. So that is a very high-level summary, being accommodating of your time. Mostly, I'm happy to have a dialogue with all of you. I do hope that you consider strongly and have an open mind about rejoining NACO. I am really proud of this association, and I can't speak to maybe some of the difficulties or the issues. I'm just going to acknowledge them outright that you may have had in the past. I'm happy to answer for the association. It is a fresh start, in my opinion. That is not to discount my predecessors, Jeff Fontaine and Dagny Stapleton. They did a great job leading the organization. I think sometimes associations need fresh blood. I'm happy to do that. I know we did some work on behalf of Lander County in the special session. Happy to talk about that. And a litany of issues that you all deal with here. And trust me, I know there's no shortage of problems. I'm happy to provide those resources if you are our member in any way that I can. I'm never gonna say that I'm perfect or I'll get 100% of things done for you, but I sure am gonna try. So appreciate any questions or dialogue or comments, and just thank you so much for being here, or allowing me to be here. So.
So I'm not talking sassy, so if I sound.
No, hey, you're good.
I'm not.
Kathy, you and I have talked, Commissioner, we've talked for a long time on the phone, so I'm okay.
I have a few things, and I
Sure.
want to make sure the public, some of the people from the public understand where and this has absolutely nothing to you, and I will throw out Dagny's name on this because I was the one who dealt with her on a lot of these issues. So on the first of all, starting with the natural resources, when it came into special session for our net proceeds, her comment was that the board, your guys' board was not going to take up that issue at that time because it was too controversial. And her and I fought back and forth. That would kill, obviously, at the time, and still can at any time kill the few counties that get the net proceeds. These are our natural resources. And so that was one of my first, and I did not know as a new commissioner, that basically you're a lobbyist, but it is what it is. I just wasn't educated enough to know that in a sense you are the lobbyist, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I just did not understand that. So for a boost for you, I was talking to Chris Porter this week on an entirely different issue, and he put in a pun saying, please, do consider NACO again, which is what it is. So but the natural resources and the special staff, 11th hour we were notified, and I know that NACO knew long before that. I knew it was thrown up, but we got called literally right before they were going to take their vote, and we were thrown off guard, and there was absolutely, the county could do nothing at that time. Because Mr. Gokachia is good about calling me day and night, telling me what's going on, not that that means a hell of beans, but he is very good. The other issue was, and I don't think it's called Bitcoin, I always call it, and he tells me I'm wrong the name of it, but I'm still gonna call it Bitcoin in Story County. When they were trying to get that passed, when I was talking to Dagny, she was literally helping write that bill with the governor, because when I said, what about the mining? The mines then could make their own communities. We set them up, and the mines could basically create their own communities with that bill if that was passed, and we would never get net proceeds again. And that was not an issue. It wasn't even looked or thought of, and when you're going to create something so huge that's going to impact a handful of counties and break them, that the counties weren't even thought of about that. So I was very upset about that and told her, and I didn't realize that she was helping to write the bill because she was on the phone going, and well, leave the mines out of it when you're right. And I thought, who the hell is she talking to? And excuse my language, but who are you talking to are you helping write this bill? So this was a learning experience for me. So I want to make sure that that was my issue with NACO, is that that's the last thing. I don't think that when whoever the representative is on the board, was, they don't bring back and it's not voted on what we wanna support, when you guys go together collectively, we don't know what. I mean, she gives very good reports, but I don't think in any of our minds, we're understanding that is a collective thing that you guys are moving forward. And we don't have a chance to say yay or nay, we're supporting that issue as a board. And I think that is something that bit everybody hard. And that's not to point a finger at Patsy Adams, Wade, that was just something that no one understood. And so I think that when one representative from a county, the entire commission should be able to vote if yay or nay, we as a commission want to represent that bill or whatever it is you guys collectively come together on. And so those, as staggered as they were, are my concerns. With that.
I'm gonna piggyback off hers because it's kind of the same area.
Is there a way I could just address a couple of those first? Because they're and my response to you is of the utmost respect.
Mm-hmm.
So just so you know. So I'll take them one at a time if that's okay, and then we can continue the discussion. So I can't speak to your private conversations with Dagny and what those happen. So I accept what your take is, what your perspective is on that. I can say, taking the net proceeds, I'm not exactly sure how that transpired because we were adamantly opposed to the reduction of county revenues in that bill. I think we also need to understand how that special session was conducted. It was called specifically to address budgetary impacts at the state level from COVID-19. And from our perspective, maybe Senator Gocochea had earlier information, but as soon as we heard, so we were not in the building, right? So that's the first thing, because the building was closed to the public and to lobbyists. As soon as we heard that net proceeds would be affected and that a constitutional amendment was being introduced on the floor, which was literally about 10.5 minutes before it was introduced, we drafted very quick testimony. I remember being in our office a little bit late, and I didn't personally testify on that, but Dagny did. We were opposed to that. Our board has the NACO board has a long-standing position that a reduction in county revenues, especially by changes in state policy, is an automatic no. We don't even have to vote on that. That is something that it's automatic for us on our policies. Now, we can have a discussion about if it reduces, this is of course separate from net proceeds, but if it lowers your administrative burden, maybe that evens out the fiscal impact, right? But on net proceeds, yeah, it's a no for us. I mean, I don't mean to be flippant, but we were opposed. So I don't know how, I mean, that's about as clear as I can make it. Blockchain and the desire of a private company to create their own government was opposed hands down at the NACO board. No one in the NACO office, to my knowledge, was writing the bill. We received the bill. This again is not to be competitive against you, but I do think we need to clarify and we need to be on the same page about what happened to that bill. We took a collective position unanimously opposed to that bill for the exact reasons that you point out, or at least one of them. A private company doesn't have the same mandates and the same requirements that local government has. That's what we work on at NACO, right? So, and secondly, we worked extensively with stakeholders, private industry, that were opposed to having another private company potentially have governance over their affairs. I mean, take the government piece out of it. Imagine, imagine if you're Tesla, I'm not speaking for them, but imagine you're Tesla and your neighbor blockchain has governance authority over you because you're in their blockchain city. I don't know how more explicit to be. We opposed it. We worked extensively with the governor's office to oppose it. The bill essentially, look, there were a lot of stakeholders involved in the opposition to this bill. I think it was ill-conceived, to be honest. And I think that you had urban and rural members, again, unanimous decision to oppose it. I don't know how much more clear I can be. As far as writing the bill, absolutely not. The first we heard about it was in the State of the State from the governor. And so, at least not to my knowledge, I can't imagine that we'd be writing a bill that we opposed, unless writing a bill means amending it so that they don't have authority. I don't know how else to do it. And then the bill became a study in the interim and then died because it didn't have a legislative champion. And it didn't have a legislative champion because we worked extensively to oppose it, us and others, of course. We didn't do this in a vacuum. So, yeah, I don't know how much more clear to be. As far as presence on the NACO board, first of all, our meetings are public. I know that I have sent out our agendas a week in advance. If you became members and you had a person sitting on our board, I would be happy to share those with your entire commission so that you know what's going to be discussed. We adhere to the open meeting law, which, so, you know, y'all are governed by that too, so you get the requirements there about disclosure. I am available to have discussions about what is on our NACO board. I think the ultimate goal of NACO and why the commission votes to send a representative is that you have some trust there that they will represent your issues, at least on a routine basis, in your best interests, right? They'll advocate for your county. I'm not saying Patsy didn't do that, but you did a great job when you were on our board.
I will interject on that, because we have had a couple things come up that I wasn't sure how our county felt, and I didn't vote on it.
Right, so I was gonna add that. And there have been tough issues at the board, at the NACO board, where people have said, hey, is there a chance we could table this and have further discussion? I think I know where my board back at home is, but I'm not entirely sure. So let's have that discussion offline. So I just wanted to clarify a few of those things. If you know, those two policy issues in particular, NACO was adamantly opposed to and worked extensively to oppose those. And then I just, you know, I guess I would commit to you, again, I can't do any of this if you're not members, but although you could have privy to our agendas, you're welcome to them, again, open meeting law. I would commit to sharing all of those with your entire board, not just your board representative. I mean, you'd have that commitment for me. I don't know how it's more to make it open. I'm open to suggestions. I think this is a two-way dialogue too, so. Anyways, happy to answer any other questions, or Commissioner Sparks, I think you had something to add, so.
Comment. So basically, I mean, you said that NACO's there, you bring our voice to the table, so. This happened back, I think it was 2020, when we were faced with SB 143. We're a very pro-Second Amendment county, and we expressed concern about this. And I can't remember who it was sitting there from NACO, maybe somebody else can, that they weren't taking a position on it, but they told us that unless all the counties can agree on it, we take a neutral stance, basically. And I argued the point, how can you take our money, right, taxpayers' money, to represent us, but then when we have a hot issue, you take a neutral stance on it? So so everybody's familiar with SB 143, and then it kind of ties back into question 16, which was back in I think it was 2016, and it had to do with background checks. Well, back in 2016 with question 16, it was a resounding no, not to pass it. The only county that passed it was Clark County. But SB 43 was very similar. They were just changing the background laws, but NACO refused to basically represent us, our voice at the table. I have a problem paying for a service when you can't represent us in hot issues. There was another issue that happened back in 2000, and this was AB 207, had to do with public defenders. That Lander County was, I believe we were against it, and we wrote letters stating we were against it, but yet NACO took the stance to go ahead and they were behind it. Where's our representation? We pay you. That's been my whole issue. We pay you for something and we don't always get it.
Sure. Sorry, I'm happy to respond. Yeah, that's true that you don't always get it, just as a general rule. We are ran by a board of directors. Every county pays into NACO that's a member, so we have to obviously balance those sort of collective issues. I can't speak to those specific instances, but I will say on public defenders, in my experience, when we worked on indigent defense services, we opposed that bill. Those are massive reforms that were passed in 2019, I believe, in response to lawsuits to a handful of counties and the state as well. I'm not familiar with what you might be speaking about, so I apologize. But so we were opposed, even though the bill created a statewide board that has majority county representation on it, which is something that we fought for. So we have majority county representation on the board that oversees standards for public defense in the state. And we still had to oppose the majority leader's bill. So, which by the way is a super fun thing to do in case you've never done it. But happy to do it because it's a service that counties provide, and we needed some acknowledgement that we'd been providing that service. And that we have a role in that service. So as far as the Second Amendment, so I can't speak to that specific interaction or what the board vote was taken, but I can tell you how our board operates. The NACO board operates on consensus, and I think that is why our association has been around for so long. We operate on consensus, but just like any board, if there was a majority of, my job is to provide what I consider, at the end of the day, I will provide my board members professional advice and my perspective. But at the end of the day, it's a board decision on how we carry out policy. So, and then my job then is to take the board vote and carry out the policy, right? At the end of the day. We don't have a rule at NACO that one member or two members can kill a policy position. On the flip side of that, we don't have a rule where one or two members can support a policy position on behalf of the board. Just like any other board that you're on, you need 3 members to create a majority. And we operate under the same rules. So I'm sorry that you felt like we let you down there. I do think that and I know I'm biased, but I prefer to focus on the things that NACO is successful on, and we have been successful. You can discuss maybe one issue that you had a problem with 7 years ago, but on an ongoing basis, I do think we do a great job in supporting counties. I don't mean that, again, to be confrontational. I just want to be realistic. I said in my opening remarks that I'm not going to make you happy 100% of the time, but I'm happy to try.
And with that being said, for you guys, with COVID, it was NACO that was able to get the counties back open and the businesses back open because each of the counties worked with NACO and they were the, I'm not gonna say that because you guys did a wonderful job and you worked your tails off to be able to get the businesses back open, with jumping through the hoops with the governor at that time and what he wanted. And basically lobbying with him to get these businesses open. So I want to make sure that people know that you guys worked your tail off, and I have had a very good working relationship with you, and I do appreciate you. Unfortunately, we all can't go off of what Dagny did or didn't do regardless. But with that being said, I had that long conversation with Chris Porter. Like I said, it started on something entirely different, and I appreciate him, and we pay him to tell us and help us get where we need to go moving forward, and his support was overwhelming for you, and so I want to make sure that I do pass that on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We go back. We have a long history, Chris Porter and I.
And his advice, and he was willing to have an open conversation about, and he just said no organization is 100% what you want, and that's all there is to it. And I have to agree, us included. So thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Happy to take any other questions or comments from all of you.
Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Lori, can you come up front, please? Sorry.
Where am I?
Just
Oh, sorry.
want to make sure everything is recorded.
I thought you were over there.
While she's on her way up, real quick, on the agenda request form, it says, are there any costs associated with the request? And it was checked, no, but everybody knows there is some cost. It's not a lot, but there's some.
My first question was what is the cost to be a member?
Okay.
And how many other counties in the state of Nevada are members? And if we do not have a representative on NACO, then our voice is not heard at all. So.
Yeah, I can answer. Thanks for the last comment is true. Not thanks, but that is accurate. So I'll take the first 2 questions. So I wrote it down. The dues. So I do want to talk a little bit about how our dues are structured, and how we assess dues to counties. So I think we're a bargain for what you get. But so it varies annually. And we base it off a couple of factors. And we do this, I think, so that NACO stays responsive to counties as well. We base it off population numbers, so the latest certified population numbers. And we do that so that there's balance on our board, so that, so anyways, that's why we do that. The second piece is we do it off of your total revenues. And we believe that keeps us responsive to keeping you all fiscally healthy, so that we continue to advocate for things that provide revenue to you, because we have a shared interest in that, right? So, so for this year, the total for the entire year would be $21,798. And then, to answer the question, you are the only county that is not a member.
And I'm speaking somewhat ignorantly, but Amy Nelson for the record, and I came to most of the meetings through 2020. And I think where I was concerned as a taxpayer and being represented was several times Ms. Waits came back and said, I wasn't sure where you guys stood, which is exactly what her role is to make sure she's speaking for the county. And so I thought one way you might remedy that would make me feel more comfortable as a taxpayer is to make sure that if it's a hot topic, it gets to the county commissioners. And then when Patsy attends the meeting, she can say, this is where Lander County stood, because it became an issue during this 2020 situation we got ourselves into, where we didn't feel like we had a whole lot of voice to begin with. The legislature was shut down for anybody to try to participate during the secret
Made for a
meetings.
fun session, let me tell you.
Yeah, I attempted to voice in a few times because I was doing some bill draft stuff. And so if there's a way to make your framework shift, you know where we sit with the wild horse thing, obviously, that's one of your platforms, that's pretty clear. But there were several times she came back, and I don't know if her voice was heard because she had to say at your meeting, I don't know where we sit, so I'm gonna go ahead and not vote. That needs to be maybe flipped the other way, get the agenda item in front of this board, and then they can say, Patsy, this is where we stand on this. Most issues she's gonna know, but there were a couple hot ones where we didn't feel heard.
Yeah, I think, sorry if I can, I think, I think we tried to address that sort of in this conversation, that, there have been folks in the past. Look, I also, I want to be empathetic to the commission's desire to have input on the agenda. I outlined sort of how I operate and how we operate at the association as far as our agendas being public. I've committed to providing them to you in advance. And if I do think there's an issue that impacts you, of course, I'll be happy to reach out. That part of my job is to communicate NACO. So I'm happy to do it. And I'm happy to support your board rep, whoever that might be, to be able to go back to you and explain the issue, or what's in front of the board. I think, I think that counties at the end of the day are stronger when we're together. I think that I'm not trying to be trite. I really think that's true. Your representation. And there might, I'll acknowledge that I think there might be individual county issues for you here in Lander. You're unique, just like Eureka is, and just like Esmeralda is, and just like Clark County is, and just like Washoe County is, right? They're all sort of unique counties. And you might have unique county issues that you guys do need to take the lead on for yourselves. And I want to do what I can at NACO to support you if you're a member. But I think there's probably a whole ton of issues going on a daily basis that I would really like to be able to advocate on your behalf that I can't do so at the moment. And I just think counties, our strength really for Nevada counties, all 17 of them, is when we're all together as 17 counties. And I know, my goal too at NACO is really to get over this rural-urban divide. I think that there's a lot of commonalities between counties. and I'm gonna work extensively to share your side of the story, and I'm gonna work extensively, and that's something I do at the legislature every day, because the more that we have a divide there, the more that smaller counties are gonna get singled out, and I don't wanna see that personally. So I have, like I said, I'm a lifelong Nevadan. I care deeply about the state, and I've seen it change a whole ton. But I'm happy to advocate on your behalf if you're a member.
Well, I mean, that's been the issue, is that it's been the whole urban-rural relationship, and it's,
Right.
again, it's like, I just go back to, you represent 17 counties,
16 at the moment.
16, yeah. You're correct.
Fair
16,
enough.
So, but it's like the natural resource issue, I conferred with Kathy on that, because I do remember that, but you said that you guys were adamantly opposed against that, but that's not what I recall. So it's.
I don't know. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't know who you heard that from. Honestly, we could. Again, I'm not trying to be combative, but I want to be clear on what our positions are. Our positions were no blockchain cities in Story County, because here was the thing about that we all said early on. It just takes a really slight amendment to change that continuous acreage, right? From 5,000 acres to, and I want to make sure we're on the same page. Opposed to reductions in net proceeds to local government revenues, massively opposed to blockchain. Both of those issues, staying late to get that stuff worked out. So, and like I said, not privy to those private conversations, but I know the board positions.
So why would NACO take a neutral stance on SB 143, the background checks?
I have no idea.
16 counties, and we were a member at that point, right?
I can't answer that for you.
But it was almost, you were doing a disservice to 16 counties, and you were doing a favor to the one county, Clark County. I mean, that's how I see it.
Okay.
And it's just, I just don't see that as a healthy relationship. Yes, I know there's a lot of other things that you do for us,
Sure.
but it's like, that's an important issue.
Yeah, I get it. I think it is an important issue. I don't know what the decision making, and I'm not trying to just claim ignorance because of ignorance. I think all I can share with you is what I shared with you earlier, which is how our board operates. One member county is not allowed veto power. But also, if you do believe that NACO has sort of a role to play, I think the best way to do it is to be on the board and support our efforts, right? So, and to have, because I do think that relationship is symbiotic. I spend most of my day communicating with our members. I spend most of my time communicating with our members. And if you were one, I think a lot of what we have here is a communication issue. I think that was the issue with the economic development folks too, right? So I'm seeing a trend, right? But I just, yeah, I mean, and I'm not making lofty promises, because I'll tell you right now, if there are times, look, don't call, if I'm asleep, I'm probably not going to answer the phone, but I'm happy to reach out and keep it more, and more, because like I said, I'm just hearing a common thread from all of you that are sharing your perspective and your history, which I definitely appreciate those conversations. I'm just seeing a communication breakdown. And obviously I can strive to do better every day that I lead NACO, but I think communication is important, because if what we're doing happens in a vacuum, this is what I think occurs. So I don't think, like I said, don't know what happened during the Second Amendment discussions. I know that we need to be strategic about how we oppose and support certain things because of those. Not to poo-poo those other things, but I do think that's important. But I'm happy to support it if the board supports it, and I'll work 100% of the way to get their policy carried out. But the only way to convince the board or to have those discussions would be to be on the board. So
back to that, if the board supports it, so back to that same issue, you took a neutral stance. So the majority of those board members must have said that's the way we want to go. But then that would go right back into what Kathy said. If we have a representative, that representative has to represent the majority of this board.
I agree.
And it's like, however, depending on how we go today, it's like there has to be something set in place to where that representative represents this board on our issues and can't.
Yeah, so I think I just want to touch that we do have an option there, I think, which is that's why. So the way that. So I sort of call NACO the pure grassroots, right? Because the decisions come from you of who to put on our board. So it really comes to that base community level of who to put on the board. And that's the hope. Feel free to set boundaries. I mean, obviously we have board-approved bylaws too. Those are actually approved by all county commissions across the state, or were at one time. But Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal of the board voting and picking the person to be on the NACO board, is that, you know, for the most part, they'll be able to represent you on an ongoing basis so that we don't keep gumming up the work that we have to do, but also knowing, hey, whoa, hold on a second, can we, and I personally cannot remember a time where in the 5-6 years that I've been at NACO now, where if a member said, well, this is an issue that I can't quite, I don't know if I know enough about it, number one, and number two, I don't know where my commission is, right? I don't know that that's ever been a situation where we've said, no, we'll just vote on it anyways. We've said the board, they're very congenial with each other because you're all peers, right, on that board. And so I've just never, it's happened a handful of times. Hey, I'm not ready to vote on this, right? So that would be the goal. If you need something written out for me, that would be my commitment to all of you, happy to do it.
Okay. Is there any more
Yeah,
discussion or questions?
I got 2 questions. So, you're 5 years on this, and first part is what is, as the group, you lobby with the legislature, what's your largest, what have you done that you feel is your largest accomplishment as the representative of all but one county in the state of Nevada in the time you've been?
Well, I've only been in this role, this particular one.
I'm asking the group, you've been with them for 5 years.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think for us, I'll speak to it. I mean, the most recent issue was probably getting rid of the blockchain issue. That was going to have a huge monumental impact on the way that we govern here.
Okay.
I also think.
You're cutting yourself short. Opening the businesses.
Yeah, and
that was the, aside from blockchain,
yeah.
opening their businesses back up.
Yeah, and we had a pretty consistent stance during COVID-19 about our position that we believed those were local decisions. Whether it was masks or anything else, we believed that those were local decisions. North Las Vegas isn't the same as Ely, right? So they don't even live as close together. So
we'll go
and
with
I also,
that one.
sorry, and
I
also,
don't want a whole, I didn't ask for a whole bunch. I wanted to. What your
I guess
first
that
one was.
initial one comes to mind.
Off of that, so in your group, so it's all counties are on. Everybody has one representative.
At
on
least
the board.
one, yeah.
Okay. What do you have? Do you have a liaison, or is it you that reports direct? Do you have time directed to the governor to meet, or are you just a lobbying group that goes to the counties and represents the county? I mean, do you have like the direct contact to? We have a lobbyist that my employer does that they meet a lot of times directly with governor representation.
We have existing relationships. I have existing relationships with I think everyone in the governor's office. So yeah, those relationships exist. They're obviously on as a case by case needed. We have scheduled times throughout session that we will meet with them on just sort of a litany of local government issues. But yeah, I have direct contact.
So second part of it, we're going into legislative session. All but us is in this, and you've had your board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number one priority is your group is going after that you see number one faces rural counties? And what is the biggest issue you guys feel you're gonna go at with this legislative session? What do you see as the biggest impact to the legislature that's coming at rural counties that we need your representation to help us?
I would say assessments off the bat. It's the state budget that impacts and those push downs of services that can be hidden in there. I think those are probably to rural counties, probably the biggest one.
The funding?
Yeah.
Unmandated fund.
Yeah.
Mandate.
Those are legacy issues, of course, but it is our number one issue.
I also just wanted to add on this because a lot of times when we have really gone against things, and one of them is certainly the reduction in taxes and abatement that's coming up on our next agenda. And NACO fought so hard against that. And even the judicial one with our public defenders, we were against it. But once it went through, then we actually sat on the committee to help ease into it and help the counties so it wasn't quite so drastic. And even they fought so hard for us on that tax abatement, I know. And we simply didn't win. But at least we get an input, and sometimes we just moderate it a little bit, so it helps.
Yeah, we try and soften the impacts for sure, of course. Look, I have to deal with a body of 63 legislators, right? So we're not going to win every fight. But yeah, I think, I have the discussion all the time that you abate local taxes without local input, that's not right, personally. Just forget my NACO role. I hate that as a citizen. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Our goal is to always lessen the impacts if possible. If legislation is going through, if it's a priority for folks, if it's signed by the governor, it's really to get, having county voice at the table and getting an understanding of how to craft that to make it a little bit more palpable or lessen the fiscal impact or the administrative burden. Happy to do it on behalf of counties. That's what we're here for.
Okay, is there any more comment, Jerry?
Thank you, Brian. Jerry Annis.
Yeah.
I have never, I've never heard Mr. Guthrow speak or met him before. He presents a powerful position, I feel. You all know that I'm very passionate about natural resources and public lands. I know that all of you are also. I made a few notes while he was talking here today. He talked about consensus and collaboration. That is so important. He talked about natural resources and public lands. We need all the help we can get coming down the pike with sage grouse is coming back, and wild horses and mustangs are putting our natural resources in the grave. So the most important thing I heard him say, I think, was he's ready for a fresh start. And I implore you to vote to get back in NACO so that we can have some strength in numbers and get that fresh start going. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Actually, NACO not only was at the forefront, but we even did the lawsuit with the sage grouse.
Oh, that's right. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there any more discussion, questions? Okay, I'll call for a vote.
I make a motion that Lander County rejoin NACO.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And all in favor say aye.
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 Commission, can we get clarification on national as well?
It's Nevada, it's both NACOs. When you join Nevada, you want to join national too.
Okay.
Yes, okay, so clarification.
So motion carries. I'll just say that I kind of voted a little bit.
No, I got you.
But that's my point. And
Yeah.
Jerry said it's like a fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
You're new to it. I'm going to be watching. And
Yeah.
if there's any, I feel that's nonsense, I'm going to call it out.
Please do.
And it's-
As you can tell, I'm happy to have that
No,
dialogue.
exactly. It's just, I believe that when taxpayers are paying for a service, those services need to represent the taxpayers. And it's just like, I've named a few where they didn't, and there's some other ideas that they did, and you said they did, so, but again, it's just, I just want you to know that I'm looking, and I'm hoping for good things.
I appreciate it. Can I make just two closing comments?
Yes.
Well, first, thank you so much for the vote. I really appreciated our conversation today. And I will say, I had jotted this down actually when I was in the audience. Like I said, I think a common thread is the communication. At least virtually, I would like to make a commitment to come to your board and talk about what we've done at NACO, to really tandem on whoever you're going to have on the NACO board. Look, it's a 6-hour round trip drive for me, but I want to do it with a goal of coming out here in person. But if the board wishes, if you want a standing item on your updates for obviously no action or anything, I'd leave that up to you. But I think where if there's a gap that I could identify, it's communication. And I view this as a two-way street, honestly. If you have issues, please bring them to me. That includes you, Commissioner Chop. So please do. And we'll have that discussion. I'll be happy to either explain it, what the board position is, or we'll bring it to the agenda and we'll work through it.
Vincent, you had made a quick comment about it was always open to the public, and
Mhm.
we do have.
Mhm.
And I'm also going to add that we had several counties that their county manager attended on a regular basis, even Elko.
Mhm.
So it is open to everyone at any time, and perhaps you want to put that on your calendar too when you can attend, because that would.
We're happy to stay in contact.
Yeah, I don't currently attend, obviously, because we aren't members, but multiple county managers throughout the state I speak with that do attend your guys' county manager meetings that you guys have put together for collaboration. And we do already have conversations ongoing outside of the meetings that they have. But I think we'll have to put it on the next agenda to appoint a commissioner, if that's what our counselor says.
That's great. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Nice meeting those who I hadn't met before, and it's so nice to see you all. Thanks. Do I need to turn this off?
Okay, we'll move into item 8, for discussion of possible action to approve, disapprove the renewable energy tax abatement application, BOWI Power LLC, BOWI Repower Project, AFN 22-12001G.
Brian, real quick before we start.
Yes.
Council, my employer is listed on the governor's office of energy by name. Do I need to abstain from conversation and vote on this?
His employer's name is listed on this tax abatement. Does he need to abstain from it?
On the notice of governor's office on page 2 on the header.
Brian, weren't you on the board originally when they first came to us the very first time and wanted a tax abatement? No, no,
Right in the first
this one.
No, not New Wellman Power, it was,
I don't think you need to abstain. You've done what you needed to do. You've announced it, okay?
Board of Equalization.
So people are aware of it.
No, on the abatement for the taxes.
I wasn't.
Ray
Well,
Williams,
that's Board of Equalization,
the original one.
but I've never heard this issue before. It was
No,
Dynamo Building.
I meant when Ormat came. Oh, okay. Ray Williams was, I thought you were too. Okay.
Mike, did you get an answer to
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. All right, so Laura, you wanna help us out here?
Laura Duval, Lander County Assessor for the record. This is our second tax energy abatement application. The last one was 10 years ago, actually. Same company, Ormat. It was for the McGinnis Hills project, which is much larger, a much higher tax amount than this one is. This energy abatement was approved by legislature. It's in the statutes. They have them in pretty much, in many counties. They've listed them all in here and they've been approved. So Ormat certainly has done their homework. They have provided the information, and I've reviewed it. This BOWI power plant has been in existence on this property for going on 50 years. And what they're doing is an expansion project. They've been in contact with the building department and pulling permits. And for the next phase is, and they're gonna update very outdated, project that they have up there now. So this is an expansion. It will provide more jobs. And it looks like they have, pretty much, other than I had to call out, that they didn't include the mine and mill account that's centrally assessed, and that's where the tax abatement will be applied, is on that mine and mill account. So I've been in conversation with several individuals with this project and asked them, and so they did do an amendment, which was, I brought to staff just yesterday, to include that in there so that you guys have all the information. This is just the current project, so the abatement will apply towards the future expansion, so it's tax dollars we don't already receive. The abatement is 55% off of their tax bill, not assessment, but their tax bill for 20 years. We are now 10 years into the the McGinnis Hills. So this is going to be an expansion, so we will receive tax revenue that, in the future, that we don't already have. And, of course, that'll get they'll receive that abatement. And so it appears that, everything is in order. This is just, they are gonna expand that project. It looks like quite a few, construction, workers for about a couple of years, it looks like, at least 18-month project to build this. And they've put a plot plan in there that shows you kind of what they're doing and how they're expanding. I also added an aerial so you guys can kind of see. I think, Brian, I'm sure you are familiar with where it's at, what it is, up there. And so they're gonna expand that project. They also are they bought a parcel that's northeasterly of there that they are going to run water lines in, because they acquired the water rights. And so they'll be piping the water from that, from those water rights that they have up there. They'll be piping that down to this parcel. And it looks like it's, a pretty good project that they're going to do. We know that this renewable energy, this is geothermal. They're also gonna have some solar, so it's kind of a mix, it looks like. It looks like, it's gonna be a viable project that's gonna be there for a lot of years to come. So we will get revenue, but the 55% tax abatement is what they're applying for, what they've been granted in pretty much they have been granted this in all the projects that they've done in all the other surrounding counties. So this is just but it has to, you guys have to either approve or deny. You know, the abatement is part of the statute and part of the policy, so, but it looks like, you know, they've pretty much covered everything. I have not seen taxation's, review on it. They did have some issues, just want them to make some changes and clarify, so, but I haven't seen their final, recommendation on that, because they're part of it as well, but it sounds like, you know, other than fine tuning some of it, but this is just the beginning phase. They have a bunch more, and then it has to go to the, you know, the Department of Energy for the final approval.
Do we know what the actual dollar amount is of that 55%?
No, there's no way to know that. No, not yet.
Well, I know geothermal does bring a lot of revenue to the county, so.
Well, actually, you know, when they first came to us, when they first started and they asked for a tax abatement and Lander County turned them down, they said, no way, no how. And so that was fine, and then, that went on for a while. And then when the legislature got involved with all 75 attorneys from Ormat and all of them
Yeah.
that put it through, I mean, the lobbyists and attorneys were unbelievable. And like I said, NACO was so important on that. When they did the NAC, they just left it open enough so we thought, golly, I wonder what's going on. Sure as shooting, they came in and not only were happy with what they got for the abatement, they actually came after Lander County to recover everything that we had said no on.
Yeah.
So they went back. So I mean, we really don't have a choice. In fact, I did have somebody say, aren't you gonna say no? Why wouldn't you
We
say
could,
no?
but at the end of the
Lots of
day-
reasons. One is history, but it's mostly because of the new statutes.
Yeah.
So here we
We
go.
can say no, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you know, the governor will veto it like he
At the
did
end of
last
the
time.
day, we learned our lesson.
Yeah, so,
All right, well, thank you, Laura.
and we're approving, and same with McGinnis Hills, and we did fight on that. But we were trying to deny an abatement on money we didn't even have yet, so you know, we are getting a lot of revenue from the McGinnis Hills. You know, even though they do get that abatement, it's revenue we never had before, and this will be the same. It'll be new revenue that we haven't previously received, and we will get, you know, 45% of it. So that's 45% of revenue we haven't seen before. So we are gonna get revenue, the way I see it. And these projects, you know, like I said, they're starting to expand all over the state. There's quite a few now. And, this, you know, the fact that it's in our county, we will be getting some revenue and some jobs, kind of benefits us, so.
And you're absolutely right, and we have to look on the positive side. But the other side was, that's our natural resource. If they wanna come here, they can pay for it. Why should we give them, more encouragement, money-wise? But we have no choice. So it is what it is, and we're happy that they're
do.
still doing well and we've got money.
Yes, they do.
Okay, so are there any questions, Josh, Terry?
Jerry Anna,
Muted.
currently an employee of Ormat.
Unmuted.
A very happy employee of Ormat for the next 4 months, when I will retire. I'm sorry, Laura, how many jobs did you say they were gonna bring?
Well,
In the long run? not the-
In the long run, the
Construction.
permanent, it says 10
No.
employees.
No, there's,
That's what they put in here.
I know, they put a lot of stuff in. It's not, I'm not being critical. They put a lot of stuff in to make it sound good. They will probably reduce the manpower out there once they get this enhancement done. Because right now they run 24 hours a day, they're staffed 24 hours a day. They'll cut back with remote operation down to 10 hours a day. I just don't believe that they're gonna put 10 people on. When they came here for the Jersey Valley plant, which is in Pershing County where I work, the records show 12 employees. There are 2, me and one other person. So just beware, buyer beware. Patsy made the comment that, you know, you don't have a choice, and, you know, that's true. They're big and strong. I follow water rights pretty closely. I do not know for a fact, you should study it, I do not know for a fact that they have their water rights perfected. I don't think they do, I may be wrong.
They started paying on it, because the Water Resource Division, they've got a ton of them that they just acquired here the last year, and they're paying $25,000 a year water assessments from, that we put on the tax roll. from the Water Resource
Okay.
Division. So they did acquire a lot of permits up there, and they do have
So
them.
they're getting them from someone else, they're someone else's
They
rights?
purchased them.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Well, when they purchased that parcel, they, included in it was all those water rights, and I could give you a copy of all those permits and
Yeah, that would be
yeah.
great. I'd provide them to the commissioners also. And, last thing I would say is, I'll be honest, the plant that I work at, and as I emphasize very honestly, that, you know, it's a great job. I love working there. I enjoy going to work every day. But that plant is on, my wife's family's BLM allotment. They're great employers. They are poor neighbors. So just be aware. Just be aware. Follow the NEPA, follow the EA, and hold their feet to the fire. We've been fighting with them for 10 years to get water back that they caused springs to dry up. And they bring in all their 75 lawyers to fight you. So just buyer beware. Thanks for your time.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Brian, you wanna ask if there's anybody on?
Yeah, do we have any, public comment that's on the phone in the audience? Okay, I'll hear a motion.
Muted. Unmuted.
No motion?
Well, we have to do it regardless.
Oh, does it meet the, is there changes in the tax laws that, do they meet the requirements? I'm gonna ask you this morning, what was the, to where they meet, to where we could say no legally and
I couldn't answer that.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where we were going, is that, I think it was back, you said it was 10 years ago,
Mhm.
that the county elected not to, then they hired the attorneys to come back in to take what, because the county back then said no, to recoup what they did. So it's just, I think it's one of those almost like unfunded mandate type things.
I believe if they can show that their revenue, exceeds the abatement, that they get that waived and that's ultimately, then the governor comes in, vetoes us, and we go down the same road we went down last time.
And then we paid,
They came back retroactive was the hard part, yeah. Okay, I will go ahead and make a motion. We approve the renewable energy tax abatement application, Biawawi Power LLC, Biawawi Repower Project, AFN 22-1201G.
Okay,
I'll
Patsy made a
second it.
motion, and
I'll second it.
JR second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries.
Commission, did you recuse yourself on the motion?
No?
No, I voted.
He said he was fine.
Bill said I was fine to vote.
Oh, okay,
Council said he was fine.
good, okay.
So we'll move into item 9, for discussion of possible action to direct county manager to identify and report back to the Board of County Commissioners regarding the use of funds by the Lander County Conservation District and projects undertaken.
So Commissioners, how this got on the agenda is I didn't wanna be operating as a rogue county manager, and I didn't wanna be operating at the direction of one commissioner. Commissioner Sparks had asked me to look into this, and I had, and, member of the public that came to me also asking for documentation of how funds are spent through the Conservation District. When I requested the funds, and projects, of county-funded projects, I got a list, and I thought that some were missing. So then I requested further, and when I got that list back, I had some redacted checks, and I get that you can redact the account number, but you can't redact the rest of the check by public record. So when we got to that point, I said, I would like the further record of this. Then is where it got a little bit more confusing to me is I've been sitting at their meetings a couple times, and I was the one who recommended that they ask for additional funding. They had wanted some of our funding, with the $250,000 we set aside for wildlife and habitat improvement in Lander County. They had wanted some of that because they were spending all the $50,000 that we were giving them every year. Getting with Lakin and looking at that, for the last 2 years, there hasn't been any additional, they haven't used any of our funding. They've not sent anything back to us so I'm not sure how anything is being funded over there. And I didn't want to continue moving forward or pressing the matter for these documents without this board's direction. And I will happily remove my public records request if this board sees fit. But is all I'm trying to do is get where the funding is being spent, how it's being spent. I'm slightly confused, and the board themselves may not even be aware that they have not done any reimbursements to Lander County for the last couple of years. Because since they have a new secretary, no funding has been requested. But yet, when I was there, they said they had spent all of it and they were gonna up their funding. And I said, hey, ask the county for, $150,000 in these upcoming budget hearings. If you guys have the projects to move forward with and can better the county, then that's the proper process for doing it. But seeing that none of it has been spent in the last 2 years, that's where I stand. And that's why I brought it in front of the board, so I have your direction.
Okay, then clarify that for me, because when they come before the budget, we have usually all the information and everything is pretty clear. Not just what we give them, but some of the other funding they get from other ways, okay? So, we've given them 50,000 and they haven't spent it in 2 years, so they have 100,000, we rolled it over?
No, ma'am.
We didn't roll
We don't
over.
do any rollover.
We didn't do
So you
rollover.
you have a physical year spending, and so when it's approved in budget in front of you guys, that, they have that money for that physical year, and they have to submit reimbursements to the county to have that paid to them. That's how we keep it with the auditors, so they know that everything is being paid up front, and we have receipts to show where the money's going. We can track it that way. The last 2 years, we have nothing to reimburse. And it does not roll over, it just, they have to
We just
re-ask
haven't,
the
we just
following
haven't
year.
spent the 50,000 that we gave them, that's all. So it's still in our coffers, right?
Correct.
This year, this current fiscal year, we did award them 100,000 because they asked for an increase in the budget and the grant request to go up to 100,000 for sage grouse.
But nothing's
Even though
been-
they never spent the 50,000 from the previous year, they asked for an increase. And so they have 100,000 for this year, but still that's to.
They haven't spent anything for the 100,000.
No, and there hasn't been any reimbursements on the secretarial side as well, and I think, Lakin, you could probably, I think there's $6,000 in that, am I?
Yeah, I think it's about 6, and then we also give them a $20,000 grant for weed control that they have not spent anything.
Okay, so if they haven't spent anything, then we haven't reimbursed them. So when it comes up for budget time is when we're gonna talk to them about what kind of money do you need and what kind of plans do you have? Because everything that we've given you before, you haven't used,
Well, I think what Bert's speaking on is on their.
right?
on
So
their-
what is it that you wanna look into?
That was,
Yeah, let me say, because I'm the one that had, I want to see past projects that were approved and the process of how they came to be approved, how they were paid for. I've been doing a lot of research, and mainly a lot of my research comes out of this Nevada Conservation District Program Supervisor's Handbook. So my concern was, when I was just asking for some simple information, what we were provided, we received some checks, Bert did, and there was things that were redacted, blocked out. Nothing should be redacted. It's just a public request, it's taxpayers' dollars. And I have a right as a commissioner to see these things and request these things. But Bert was concerned that he didn't want to be operating just off of my wishes, and that's why it's in front of you today. I still want to see past projects, how they came about, how they were, the money that was used to.
How they were funded.
Yes, exactly, because we are coming up on budget, and I wanna do a little bit of homework.
Before the budget.
Yep.
So, off of that, they have a chair. Why would we put that burden on Bert to review that? Why wouldn't we request the chair to come and present this to us as a group, exactly that? I mean, we have questions as a board. I mean, do we need to put additional on it? If you have questions, shouldn't the chair have, ain't it a county?
Well, so this board doesn't have
No.
questions, I as a commissioner have questions, and I asked for a public records request, which it's an oversight of government, it's transparency, there should be no issue, there should be no pushback on it. And it's the pushback that I've gotten, it makes me wonder why. I wanna see the
Can we
records.
ask them here or take
No, I
it
want
up?
the records, I want the public records
But can we
request,
ask
yep.
one of the board, the chair of the board?
No, I want the records, I don't wanna ask somebody, I don't want an opinion, I wanna see the records.
I have something to say on that, because I was trying to do research, so I'd halfwittingly know what I was talking about. So I did get a hold of Moline, because no, they're not an extension of us, we grant them money, where they're not, we don't have somebody from here sitting on their board, they're their own board, part of the state program. So I had gotten a hold of her to ask just what's going on too, because I didn't understand, and I also had gotten, because I knew Jeremy Lutz had said that they had a bunch of projects they had gone to the conservation district, and they had done a bunch of projects for them. Water boxes and different things for the antelope and deer and things like that. So I was just trying to figure out, and when I had spoke to her briefly, yes, Malene, is that
Melanie.
Melanie? Yeah, I spoke to her for a little bit yesterday and just asked, what do you do? Because I don't know anything about the conservation district. And so she said that they get part of the money from the state. It's a state organization from the state of Nevada, and that we work cohesively with them for different projects. And so that people come and, just like we grant money to during budget time, people come to them and ask for projects to be done. And Endow is the one that does it the most to them, and it has their projects funded through them. And one of the thing that she had said that they had gotten I'm not gonna pronounce it right, information's request, but it wasn't done. I have no idea how they're done. There's a certain form or something that's done, and the information would take a little while to get because their lot was requested, and it was gonna take longer than they had to get it to them, and she didn't have a problem coming here with it. It just was going to take a little bit more time because there was a bunch of information. And she wasn't complaining, she just said it takes a little to go back and get, and some of those records are old and they may not even have them if it goes back past the 7 years. But that's how that board, the little bit of, I found out, and Jeremy Lutz was gonna show up today, he must have forgot, and explain that a lot of the projects he has asked to be funded through there for wildlife. So that's the little bit of information I have.
It is a state board, 100% correct, but Brian is the commissioner that is appointed to that board by this commission, so we do have somebody that sits on that board.
Oh.
And now I think, did we have, was it Amy who asked to sit as a?
No, I don't know.
Amy, I think, is on that board.
Yes.
I think it's Wayne that applied for that position, correct?
As the representative.
Okay.
The county.
It used to be Jerry that was an appointee by the board, and so so we do have some representation on there.
So, okay, public comment.
Jerry Annis. I served on the, I'm proud to say I served on the Lander County Conservation District for 10 years or more. Some of the things I'm hearing here today don't make sense to me, and I've been to all their meetings. I'm no longer on the board, but I go as an interested public. And so we earlier talked about consensus and collaboration. Commissioner Chop made the comment about bringing somebody in. I would suggest, number one, I would say that if you want to do an audit, I think you should, just to kind of clear the air. There's nothing there that I'm aware of that you would take issue with. From a proprietary standpoint, maybe from a personal standpoint, you may. But I would suggest that you give the Conservation District some time on your agenda to present their stance, their actions, their projects, how they operate, and then and either before or after do an audit. I think they would welcome it. They're not hiding anything. It's a great organization that's doing Lander County a great service. But if you want to do an audit and investigate, you need to be sure that you go through the proper channels and do it properly. If you don't, there is a good chance you could get yourself into legal jeopardy. So
Okay.
please be careful.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So number one is I don't wanna do an audit. It's a simple public records
Well,
request. That's all it is.
you know,
I don't
I'm
know why
suggesting
it's
that you
becoming
do
a big
an,
deal.
I think, I'm
Public records
suggesting that you
request.
do an audit.
Don't we, just out of
That's all.
curiosity,
Oh.
don't we get that when they put in their grant application, they don't have any drawdowns, so if they're not drawdowning, then.
That part I don't understand. I don't understand that part because they've continued to do projects. So that's where they need to be here to present. And just for a little bit more background, there was a little confusion a minute ago. I was on the commission for probably 8 years, spent some time as your appointed position, left that position. Amy took it, but then she ran for the public, so she stepped out of that position, which Commissioner Sparks took until Wayne Nebaker took that position. So thanks very much. Hope you give them a chance to communicate and collaborate and continue to do good work in Lander County.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks.
More public comment? Tracy?
No, I was just gonna say, Tracy Price for the record, but Bert cleared that up, because I thought we had representation from the county on that board, and that person, obviously, are you privy to that information?
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking for a public records
And they're
request.
not giving it to you?
Yeah, Bert was, is right, but there was pushback, and that's why Bert said, I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna put it on the commission.
That's what I was just.
I'm just asking for public information, that's all I'm asking for.
And to be clear, I want everybody on the Conservation District to know, and the commission as well, that they do great work. They've done some great projects. We've done, oh yes, no. But I have the same concern that Jerry does, that, that board may not even know that they aren't asking for reimbursement, and they may be losing out on money that they could further fund other projects with, and this could be a good thing for everybody. This is not necessarily a bad thing. To look into this and get the details of where the money's going, how it's being spent, and why they aren't requesting their reimbursements from the county that they've requested in budget, I think is worthy questions.
Thank you, Bert. Jerry, Annis, again, just one last thing I forgot to say is we hold public meetings. We adhere to a public meeting law, and you're all invited. Second Tuesday of every month, 5:30 at the Extension office. Please come.
Thanks, Jerry. Was there more public comment?
I'll probably just be saying the same thing the people have said. They need to be here. If you have a question for them, then they need to come up here and answer your questions. It just sounded like, I don't know, it didn't sound very good. I think they are a great group, and there's no reason why they should be looked upon as not doing something right.
So how is a public records request looked upon not doing something right? It's a public records request. People can that's the thing when you're working with government.
Absolutely.
It's an oversight.
Why not bring somebody
Yeah,
up here
they're more than
from the
welcome.
committee?
We're
If you're on it, then I guess I don't understand why you don't know what's going on.
I do on some projects, I want to further understand you. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of research and I have questions on a lot of things
How long have you been on the committee?
for 4 years. We've had a representative, actually, that served as that.
You're not doing it, somebody else.
Yeah, so what's wrong? I don't understand
wanted
the
to know
public
that.
records request. What's wrong with that, guys?
I don't think there's anything wrong with the public records request. I think what the problem was just, I think, a lack of drop of communication and how their process worked. I don't think that anybody's at fault. I just think, once again, from the conversation with her, was the way that they need the request done wasn't, and she said she would have been working with her to get all of that figured out, and everything was fine. It was just taking them a little bit of time for that person to grab all that information. It wasn't like they were trying to withhold anything. They were getting it what he had requested. But it was the way it came through at the very beginning was the only issue, and they were just trying to figure out exactly what was needed. It didn't sound to me, not trying to interpret what she's thinking, but when she said to me, it didn't sound like they were trying to prohibit any information. They were just trying to figure out how to do the process.
I would be embarrassed if somebody came to the county and says, we're doing a public records request, we'd like to see this. I would think that our staff would be cooperative in providing.
She wasn't saying, I mean, that's
No, and so everybody's clear here, this didn't start out as a public records request. This simply started out as a request for projects and things that have taken place and turned into a public records request based on the lack of information given back. And if it takes some additional time to do that, the only reason it's on the agenda is not to create any animosity or any finger pointing or anything else. It is on the agenda for transparency, so nobody thinks that I'm running around being a rogue county manager, public record requesting things that should be open to the public without a public records request. This is simply just disclosure of what we're spending money on in projects, so our commissioner and new people that are being appointed to this board are fully apprised, including myself, because I don't know how this works with the state board and then us. I don't know how all that, because I've never really been involved in all that. So this is not to create animosity or anything more than to make sure this commission is directing me in the direction that I go. And if they don't wish me to go down that road, I will completely back off. But if they would like to see it, I'm here to get it.
I'm just saying, I think somebody from that board needs to be here.
Jerry Annis, again, lots of information, and some of the conversations don't match up. So I implore you to get representation from the Conservation District here to talk about it, communicate, and collaborate. You'll get all your answers, Brian, and they'll be good ones.
Well, I agree with that. We get somebody here, but I would like the board to grant the request for public records, because there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, no, I don't disagree with that.
And then if you don't, then I would like for you guys to state why you're refusing a commissioner a public records request of a board that he sits on. That's all. And then we'll go however.
I didn't know it was going now. I didn't know it was, please
Yeah,
let me
exactly.
finish. I didn't realize, in my process, I wasn't realizing that the request for us was to grant permission to do a records request. That's not a problem. I don't have a problem. I just didn't understand that that's what the agenda was for. That's all. I wasn't going against
No, I know that.
that, so.
If we've made if there was a public records request, there's laws and statutes and everything else. I'm opposed to going about it this way and putting that on to Bert. If they haven't made the deadlines out are in place, then I think it needs to be if it's Bert turns it in, I think then the state needs to come in, because they're not meeting there's timeframes for a records request. And if we're not getting them, then I think we follow the procedure, because I don't know, council, what liability are we taking on? That's what it goes to exactly, is it comes down to Bert's rogue again, and Bert's running around trying to get this and that. And everybody ain't listening to this today, so the word gets out, and we're back into the problems that's been going on for a long time, rather than following. You have the right to the procedure, and there is a formal process to it. I'm questioning why we want to go outside the formal process. They can come here, they can bring the records and provide what we wanted, that they can provide that as an open right here. This is what was requested, this is what it is. But if we're questioning projects and stuff like that, then I think the process needs to be done, and that's where it would get clear, is an open forum, more just outside. I'm worried about where we're asking, it wasn't met. If we made the request and it wasn't met, why don't we take it it needs to go to the next level.
Okay. Two things appear to be going on simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive. He's put in his request. They are apparently not complying with the law. I'm only going by what's reported here. That's why I say apparently. He's got the right to just continue on that road, but he also, as a member of this commission, has at least a moral duty, if not a legal duty, to bring it to your attention and add to the pressure. Bert has a duty to not just go off on one commissioner on everything. I mean, occasionally he uses his discretion on it. He may, but if he thinks it's an important issue and needs to be brought to the board, then that's what he does, and he did do that. That's what you're being asked today. As I understand it, the only thing that everyone is seeking today is simply to up the pressure a little bit before going to formal court action and other problems. And I think that's probably appropriate. It is ridiculous that somebody is holding back the amounts of checks. Financial stuff is the most important thing, and it's the thing that gets everybody's hackles up quick. So they shouldn't be holding that information back. Now, clearly on the on the count numbers and stuff, yeah, and identification, that I understand the redacting. I think something is just, personally, I think, you know, having worked with bureaucracy before, I think somebody just wasn't paying attention, and it's a screw up that'll probably be explained, but added pressure probably will not hurt. In any case, I don't see where there's anything wrong with adding that pressure. So,
When I spoke with her yesterday, it did not sound to me like she was not going to produce that information. She just said that the woman that how far back, and she didn't tell me how far back, and I didn't ask, that the information was requested. It was gonna take them, because they didn't have all that information right at hand, because some of it was old. Like, once again, I did not ask her how old, I don't care. That it was going to take them a little time to get that together. Now, that's the little bit of information I had from her. I didn't dig, because I just wanted to understand, for one, how the conservation worked and how the board worked with our board, because I did not know, because I've not truly paid a lot of attention to it. So before I came, I at least wanted to have a little bit of understanding of it. And so she wasn't criticizing anybody. She was just saying it's taking them a little bit of time to get all that stuff that has been requested to Bert, and that was the end of the conversation.
So, real quick, is this something that we should pursue through your office versus Bert's?
well,
Why would you?
eventually, maybe it'll get there, but, and Bert and I can discuss that, if he needs my help, but my guess is that at this point,
Commissioner?
just giving him what has been asked for is likely to give us.
Is all I'm asking for, though, I want to be clear that this agenda item is all I'm asking for is to leave my public records request, let it remain. And they have responded and said that it would take them 60 days to get it back to us. The concern I have with that is it kind of overlaps our next budget hearings, which we will be either awarding additional funds to them or we won't. Or for this board to say, no, Bert, you probably went too far by even requesting that without bringing it to us anyway. And I don't want Brian or any individual commissioner giving me direction, because then it exposes any of you. So that's why it's before you guys, is simply to leave my request in. And then once I receive that, I'll bring it back to the board, along with hopefully them to the board with some of their projects. I know when I spoke to Anna, she said, and that's her secretary, she said that they are compiling a list of projects with pictures to show all the good things they have done. And I think that it's important that we highlight that as well. But Brian wanted to see the funding, and I think this is the appropriate way to do it without me looking rogue.
That clarified some of my issues. I thought we were asked, I thought this was to tell Bert that you pursue this, you do whatever you need. This is
No,
just-
no,
okay,
no.
I'm
I mean,
fine.
what I get,
Clarified then.
what I
All right.
get from my public records request, I'm gonna bring to the board.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, so Paula?
I'm just wondering, I'm just curious, because I don't know, how was the original request, put in? Did somebody call? Did they make an email request? How does that work?
All through email. Everything is through email, and I could go back through our communications. I'd reached out to Anna initially, then Anna had forwarded it on to Melanie, who's I believe runs it for the state. And then Melanie had reached back out to me and said that she wasn't going to, or she would recommend not to give these records if it was done through anonymous or if it was not in a FOIA request form. So that's when I responded back with, please consider this email my official FOIA. Can you please provide these documents? And then I followed up with putting it on the agenda for this commission to either make that stay or redact it.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of information for a secretary, or, you know, because I've had information requests for my board as well. And it's not something you can just jump right out and get that information right away. So that was my request. So if you have that chain, that would be great to see how it all started, what the original request was, and then how it got to this point. The second thing is, did anyone from the commission or your office, Bert, contact that board to notify them that they were going to be placed on the agenda so they can make their schedules open to be here?
I did not, because this is a FOIA request, it's not for the board.
Here representing themselves is because they didn't get a formal request. I do know that, and they all have busy schedules as well. So I think if you want a request
Well, and I don't,
They're on the agenda item, that's, the least that you can do is let whoever's on the agenda know that they're being put on the agenda to make, so that they can make their schedules available. Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, just, it's not necessarily for that board, it's not an update from the board, or, and I wasn't here to create an argument, so that's, I mean, we can ask them to come before you guys, this is more or less just a hold.
Just as long as we all understand what it is you're asking, it's not that, I think that was, once again, the communication, so we're all on the same page.
The item is just specifically for you guys to give him direction to proceed, that's it.
So,
So, is there any more discussion, questions? Okay, is there, let me see here. So possible action, do we have to have a motion on it, or is it
Now
just
you can
simple
just give him
direction?
direction.
Mike, did you have something?
I was gonna make the motion.
Well, we don't have to have a motion.
Okay.
We can just give direction or not give direction. So is it fine with the board if we give county manager direction?
Well, he's already done it. You want us to ratify his approval?
Well, if you guys would like me to redact it, I can
No.
We can
remove my request. It's-
It seems like a fair request. It's okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so, next item. Correspondence reports, future agenda items.
Okay, I have two things. One, I would like, Ms. Waits, would you like a sign in Austin? Do we need to put that on? There's a, is it a kiosk you want? I'm confused.
Yes, it's an electronic kiosk, right?
Correct, yes.
Electronic kiosk.
Okay, and are we looking at, and the reason I'm asking this is because there's a few steps, my staff brought it to me, there's a few steps that are gonna have to take place. We're making a future agenda item, so we aren't in discussion here. But it's, for us to put one on state right of way, there's a few things we gotta do. Are you guys wanting it on a building? Because then it becomes a budget item.
No, not on the building. It's freestanding.
Yeah, and I've been in contact with the state about the right.
You have to identify yourself, Miranda. Sorry.
Miranda Tremaine for the record. I've been in contact with the state about the right of way, so it's gonna be an 8-foot standing sign and it'll be facing east and west.
Okay.
So, and the sign is a request for, cause we don't have emergency service, like,
So it's a budget item, it's not necessarily an agenda item.
correct. To my
Okay.
understanding, I don't, how do
It's
we agree on it?
it's a budget item. Yeah, we do, because we found a place for it in the budget that we can still do this year. But I think it's something that the commissioner should approve. It is an electronic sign.
Couldn't we do it during budgeting?
Yes, you found it in the budget?
Yeah, I had told Patsy that we could take it out of a reserve fund for this current budget, if that's something you guys wanted to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's where the confusion was, sorry.
Yeah, okay, so we'll
So
discuss
we'll
what
put
it is,
that on the,
but
we'll
it
put
should be
that on the
on.
future agenda, a kiosk for Austin.
Yeah, and the other one, if you don't or don't have it on yet, is the, our response to HR 6635.
I got it.
Okay.
You've got that one?
I
Okay.
was gonna ask you if you'd like us to write a letter of opposition for that? Is that what the,
Well, it would, I
Or
don't know.
would you guys
if
like
I
an
must-
agenda item?
we may oppose it, we might, but I mean, without consulting with all the commissioners, it's regarding our response.
So you want it as an item for you guys
For
to make a
discussion.
motion
For
of
discussion
how to proceed?
and the letter,
Okay.
yeah, an action letter, yeah.
And then maybe we could have the PLUAC board and the conservation board probably in on that discussion, if we can personally invite them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be all our backup.
Now, did we, we're supposed to hear back from the gentleman with AirMed, right, today? Whether they were able to do what they're gonna do?
Yes, I do believe he's already emailed the chain between us.
Because if we
to
don't, if
him.
it doesn't go the way the motion was, we're gonna have to put something on the next agenda to handle that business.
What I assume will happen from dealing with them, as long as I have, is they will send me a new agreement, and then I'll have to go through that agreement and side by side with the one we had and see if they made the adjustments that I gave you guys, and then we can go from there. And if they don't, then we can put it back on the next board with what they did send you guys to decide.
I don't have anything.
You do? Am I on that?
Yeah, you're right.
What about updates on pending litigation?
We will have a update from Walmart's settlement with Johnson and Johnson. There's a big award that came down from the Attorney General's office. I got the email on it yesterday. I think it's a substantial amount of money that's gonna be coming down, so it'll be on the agenda for approval for us to apply for that.
Then did you guys do the library last time, update?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a great update, look in your book.
No more on this item? Okay, we'll move into public comment for non-agenda items only. Is there public comment? Okay, we'll move into adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Muted.
This
This conference is no longer being recorded.
You're needed out front.
I am.